All right, we'll call the meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission of February 1st. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Silver?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner McCowan?
Here.
Commissioner Madrigal? Commissioner Hammerstrom?
Here.
Commissioner McNerlin? Commissioner Ward?
Here.
Commissioner Doble? Here. Commissioner Hamburg? Here. Commissioner Rosenberg?
Here.
First item is consent calendar. Approval of the regular summary minutes of January 4th. Approval of January claims. Acceptance of monthly financial report. Anybody want to pull one of those items for further discussion?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public expression. The commission welcomes participation in LAFCo meeting. Any person may address the commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of LAFCo, which is not on the agenda. There is a 3-minute limit and no action will be taken at this meeting. Individuals wishing to address the commission under public expression are welcome to do so throughout the meeting. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to address the commission? All right, we'll move on. Public hearing. We will begin a public hearing. I wanted to make sure that the proof of publication. Are you having problems there?
The proof of publication is in your packet.
Okay. And we have a copy of the packet up front for the audience?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we'll begin with the executive officer.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. You had this as a workshop item, and as is your practice, those comments were received, and so this matter is back for you. The Calpella County Water District SOI update is back as a noticed hearing item for your action today. You have the revised draft with changes as noted in the workshop, and so and I want to acknowledge the great assistance that we received from the Calpella General Manager and from our Commissioner from that district. Very helpful. We've had meetings, phone conversations, opportunities to review the materials with them, both at the workshop level and then getting their comments at draft. And so the change, we did find a sphere, a prior sphere map through the course of this update, and it extended west and east beyond the district boundaries. And so after review and after looking at land use and capacity and service issues, it is the recommendation before you that the sphere be reduced to the east. It is currently shown up, going up past Lake Ridge Drive and up past Marina. And then so that would be brought back, and then to the district boundary, a little bit to the south as well. And then to the west, the proposed sphere would capture that Central Avenue area as shown on the shaded portion of your map, the area west of Central Avenue, but not the agricultural area further west as noted. So in your figure you have a dashed line and a shaded area that shows the proposed sphere, and then the 1997 sphere is shown as a lighter tan line there. So we do feel like we've conducted a good staff level review. You've had a workshop to look at this, and we have a complete SOI update for you, proof of publication, starting on page 42, and then there's a resolution for your action should you decide to approve this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Let's hold those questions. Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing at 9:08. And is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on behalf of the Calpella SOI?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Lee Howard, 3900 Parducci Road. I guess I really don't know where to start other than to say that I read this and I really lack the ability to identify with what is being said in this report. And I guess I'll just kind of start at the start here. The simple fact that the 100-gallon-a-minute restriction sits there as a controlling issue, and this is kind of ludicrous, because that 100-gallon-a-minute restriction was put in 1992 at the request of Millview in the agreement to supply water to Calpella. It wasn't put in because Calpella wanted it or anything else. It was put in because Millview was concerned that they were going to de-water the Millview system if they left it open-ended. And in fact, if my recollection is correct, the actual flow at the new installation was 355 gallons a minute approximately. And an orifice went in at that point to restrict it to 100 gallons a minute. Evidently, they haven't seen fit to renegotiate that, but that shouldn't be a controlling factor in this.
What page are you on, Lee?
Yeah. What page you on?
It's a chart that's in your.
Page 31.
It's
Packet
on
page 31.
8.
Page 8, okay.
And
Packet, page 31.
the agreement was a 1992 agreement with Millview to supply that water. The second part of that is the water availability is fake. It's false. There's no rationale for that water that is being restricted to that area. Calpella and the people of Calpella are members of the Russian River Flood Control District. They're entitled to water from the Flood Control District. And at the present time, at least as of the end of the year, the Flood Control District had over 500 acre-feet of water available to the people of Millview. I could go back quite a bit further in why Millview and Calpella got into this agreement is because they were getting gouged by Redwood Valley on water that was coming around the Horn and into Calpella. So this just isn't factual that there is a water problem for the people of Calpella. It isn't real. It's fabricated. And I don't know why it's fabricated, but it is fabricated. If Calpella went today to the Flood Control District and asked for another 100 acre feet, it's there and available to get. So you're putting a burden on the people of Calpella for no apparent reason that I can see. And sometimes it's just regurgitation. Somebody says we're restricted. Restricted to what and by whom? The other part of this is there's not a word in your report that these people are residents and constituents of the Flood Control District. The district goes out through the entire thing of Calpella. The other part of it is the Flood Control District's boundaries do extend a little bit more to the west and into that area that could be served. And do those people not have a right to have water if it's available? I would argue that they do. And if Calpella can serve it, so much good for the community. That whole Gold Gulch area on the west side is dry area for wells and stuff, but yet could make some nice homes in there if the water's available. I'm sorry.
I just thought you might have a question for you on some of this.
I do. Do you have the documentation to go along with your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have an extra copy? The reason I'm asking is because I think we should see the documentation to make this as correct as we can.
Well, and
I'd be happy to go make
I
copies.
I participated in the negotiations with Millview and Calpella, and this is the July 22nd, 1992 contract with Calpella. I would like it back, though.
Sure, I can.
Give it to our clerk, maybe we can make a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can read to you just, pursuant to this agreement, Calpella shall be entitled to purchase from Millview treated water at a rate not to exceed 100 gallons per minute. On and on and on. But that was, again, that was put in there for other reasons than what is said in this agreement.
Well, we'll have to figure out where the information came from. You were here last month at our workshop. How come you didn't maybe bring this up?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't prepared to. It was the first time I'd seen it.
Oh, because it was available that
Ask her
day.
to make
The same document. Today was just our public hearing to accept
Well, this
it.
is a public hearing, and
I
that's what
understand. We had a public input on it last time too. but-
Well, you can.
Again-
I just don't know if they will charge us.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lee. I just want to clarify the fact that you're not disagreeing with the fact that that 100-gallon per minute contract exists. You're just disagreeing with how it's characterized?
Well, the simple fact from 92 to today, and we get into it a little bit more, they're pumping a whole lot more than 100 gallons a minute out through Calpella today. They're probably pumping close to 550, 600 and serving Redwood Valley with it. At the expense of who? Calpella? I think Calpella has the opportunity to do whatever it wants to do. If it wants to keep this thing and make it so they're restricted and they have a moratorium on them, so be it. But at least know the truth and know what the facts are. There's certainly a lot more water available there today than there was, and Millview has a lot more than they did in 1992.
So it's not the fact that the contract exists. That, I think we all agree,
It's
is the
there.
case, right? It's just that you're saying that,
There's more
Recognize it
water.
for what it is.
right, that there's,
But
Yeah,
if you
that
want
it's-
to continue to put moratoriums on things, this is the way you do it.
John, you had a question?
Well, more to clarify my understanding. So I believe you're saying the 1992 agreement exists. If Calpella is to pump more than that of Millview water, they should go back and renegotiate the agreement
They could.
to reflect, pardon?
They could, but they're already pumping more than that.
Well, understood, but so...
The orifice is gone from the system.
Well,
quite some time
understood,
ago.
but the fact that they're apparently way beyond the limits of the agreement needs to be renegotiated, changed, whatever, to reflect the actual practice. And then secondly, aside from that agreement, there is no water availability issue for Calpella because they could contract with the Russian River Flood Control District.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, another thing that has happened since the information for this was first determined is the moratorium for Millview has been lifted.
Right.
For Millview has been lifted, right?
But that affects their
But
ability to provide water to Calpella.
Well, yeah,
Theoretically.
treated water, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, do you have any more issues with the SI?
Well, you can go to the 2005 permit from the state if you would like. And it's erroneous too because it has Redwood Valley supplying 100 gallons a minute to Calpella. So I would hope, and it again locks in the same rhetoric into the permit that was locked in before. And I don't, you know, it could be management, it could be the board, I don't know what it is. I'll be very honest with you. But when I read this and I go, this does not make sense. There's a lot of stuff here that has just been glossed over or blown off. And
Well, sometimes that happens, Lee. We've run into that with a lot of our districts, not having accurate information. We can only use what we get. So.
Well, and I agree with you. I haven't been here and watched any others, but I did pick this one up and read it and said, oh my God, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm glad you're here to correct the record.
Well, I won't, don't, that's enough for somebody to,
Okay.
Again, I come back to who's well served here. When you, in the language, and it's simple stuff, but it really does show the mentality or the lack of it regarding Hopland is a neighbor to the south. By what, 15 miles, 20 miles?
Well, we're all in the same county.
Okay, well, the thing is that Joe Doak's coming into the community and picking this thing up and reading it and going, oh.
Well, I like to think that happens, but I don't, sometimes I don't believe that.
It does occasionally.
Not very often.
Thanks, thank you, Lee. Go ahead.
Lee, the copies are being made as we speak, so you'll get your copy back before you leave.
Well,
So, what,
here's the domestic.
could you repeat what particular sentence or whatever, or maybe it's more than one sentence in here, you would have us change and how to change it?
Well, I don't think, Doug, it's that easy. The simple fact is that the allegations are made that they're restricted to 100 gallons a minute. And by contract, today, the 2092 contract, they are. But that was a contractual thing. And like I said at the table to hammer that contract out. But it isn't true today. It doesn't have to be true. And the second part of that is they're restricted by the amount of gallonage that they have, and that is absolutely not true. They have the ability, because they're in the flood control district, and the people in the flood control district are in Calpella's district, they're entitled to a firm yield of water from the flood control district to serve Calpella. And they're not getting that right now.
But the reason I asked the question is because this is a sphere of influence determination. And I would suggest that what you're asking us to correct
Is the MSR.
is probably more related to the MSR, which will come up at some point. And but we should like excise any misstatement of fact from this. But we're not making findings in here, and so if we were making a finding based on this, that would be more important. But
if it's said enough, Doug,
if the
long
facts,
enough, said long enough and hard enough, it becomes the truth.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying if there's a factually incorrect statement, we should excise that sentence. That's why I'm asking if you have a sentence
I'm surprised the board
we should excise.
would buy into this knowing what the truth is. Thank you. You should get that too.
We have another one to copy too, Beth. Thanks. Well, he may want to leave, I'm not sure. I already have a copy of this. Okay, let's bring it back, Teresa.
So, at the beginning of this, the Calpella board was thanked for their cooperation. Did they look at this?
Yes.
Yes.
We have looked
Absolutely.
and looked and looked, gone over and over and over.
Well, so,
I don't have any clue about this. I have no understanding of that. I just know that Dave Redding, who's our general manager, has completely approved this SOI as it is. So what Lee Howard is saying is complete surprise to me. I have no idea.
did the manager look at it, or
He's
was
the
it
general
presented to
manager.
the full board?
And the full board. He's the general manager and the full board, yes.
Do you have any more input on it?
No, just, I want to just reiterate what Commissioner Silver has just said. We know that it went to the full board for review, and we know that we have correspondence from General Manager Redding saying this is right.
That's right.
Holly?
And unfortunately, you know, the language in the permit and the previous contract of 92, it may very well have language that is disagreeable now, but we don't have any control
Right.
over changing that, unfortunately.
Well, I like John's idea about maybe renegotiating the contract. But John, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, that would be between the agencies
Right.
involved. I think our responsibility is to do everything we reasonably can to make sure that our documents that we approve are factually correct. So, you know, based on this new information, it does seem like the conversation between our executive director and the district should continue. And let's make sure that the document we approve is factually correct. Otherwise, these things take on a life of their own, and statements that are incorrect get cited in subsequent documents, and that, I think, puts everyone in a rather poor light. So even though this is last-minute information, it's very pertinent information, and it's our responsibility to try and make sure we accurately reflect what the facts are.
Carrie, then Holly.
And I do agree with Commissioner McCowan, but I believe that George will be having a meeting today with the general manager of Redwood Valley, who is also the new manager for Millview, and he may be unaware because he is new.
Yep.
And I think it's important maybe that this document be discussed with him.
It will be.
Okay.
Holly?
I'm leaning on the side of accepting the document how it is, primarily because there aren't, as far as I've been able to see, changes, like Doug mentioned, there isn't changes that we can make that would address this issue specifically. When you look at the analysis, I believe all of the analysis is correct. It doesn't say that they're out of, you know, I don't get the inference that they're restricted, but I mean, maybe I'm reading it differently, but the fact that the board and manager have approved it makes me think that we should move it along.
Angela?
I believe the same. I think that where we should address this issue is the MSR. And if you look at the 2013 MSR, it is a real poorly written piece of work. And at this point, we can change that in a couple of years. This doesn't restrict anything. If you look at it over, especially the conclusion, it doesn't restrict anything, even though it's a 1992. And it's proven that we are passing water to the residents, and nobody's being restricted there. So I believe that I'm with Holly on this. I think because we've gone over it, and Dave Redding is very comfortable with this document right now.
Teresa?
I just want to say that I agree with Commissioner McCowan that it needs to reflect accurate information. Possibly the manager didn't know about this. I mean, it's possible. So why hastily approve something? Just put it off, check the facts, make sure it's accurate, and put something out. I agree with Lee that, you know, you put something out inaccurate, it can take on a life of its own eventually. So that's my standing.
Doug?
So I think if we just struck some of the language in the last paragraph on page 8 that we think even may be inaccurate, striking any of that language wouldn't affect our establishment of the SOI, and then that if there are statements in that last paragraph that are even possibly incorrect, I would suggest that someone identify them and we just strike them. and then approve the document with those stricken.
So what I'm hearing is we might want to go forward with the approval of this SOI, but we need to make more accurate information. If we strike that, would that make some of you feel more comfortable?
Excuse me.
Where are we talking?
On page 8.
It's page 8 or page 31 of the packet.
It says right here on the top, Calpella has sufficient infrastructure capacity but lacks additional water capacity. If you just take out the additional water capacity, that should do it.
That's on the top of page 8?
Last
No,
paragraph,
last paragraph,
first
first
sentence.
sentence.
Oh, I see, okay.
Got a number.
Yes, sorry.
In reading this,
It's counterintuitive. It's muted when
in reading this, it looks like the last sentence is the one.
Yeah, I see
Not
that
the last
now.
sentence, but the second of last sentence
Second to
that
last one.
says, Calpella County Water District is currently under a moratorium for new service hookups because the district currently does not have water available for any new customers. And I think the issue isn't about the capacity of the system or the infrastructure within the system. It's really the question is whether there is water available to the
Future, yeah.
Good point. John?
I think it's an important enough point that it does make sense to continue. You know, I think we bring this back at our next meeting, and we would probably at that point be able to have language in front of us that would reflect the new information rather than trying to do some hasty editing here. And is there any time pressure? Is there something else that won't happen if we delay 1 month in adopting this?
Yes, there is. We want to annex Central Avenue, and we need to have this done.
Well, that itself is a process that's probably going to take some time. So,
Exactly. And so as
but
long
the
as you
area-
keep putting
the
this
area-
off.
The area is currently being served, so I'm not sure that anyone's being disadvantaged if we delay 1 month to make sure we get this right.
Okay.
So are you going to entertain a motion? Or- Let's hear it.
This may not be the one you wanted. I would move that we approve the resolution accepting the Calpella Water District Sphere of Influence update, striking the sentence, and I apologize, I have this digitally.
Page 31.
Striking the sentence on page 31,
That's page 8 of the SOI.
page 8 of the SOI that says, Calpella is currently under a moratorium for new service hookups because the district currently does not have water available for any new customers. That would be stricken.
What
And-
about the next sentence?
The next sentence is accurate, correct?
That's
The next
correct.
sentence says multiple agencies in the Ukiah Valley are under moratorium,
That's right.
which is true,
It's
to
true.
the best of my knowledge.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So that's
I think
ex-
everything else will stay.
That's the extent of your motion.
And, yeah,
And what about the last clause in the first sentence about lacks additional water capacity? Is that true
That's
or
not true.
questioned?
so,
Because I think Commissioner Soper
yeah,
was.
so I'd be
wanting
fine
to
putting a
drop that,
period
too.
after capacity. Striking but lacks additional water capacity, and then striking the sentence I had mentioned. I apologize that it's not perfect, but I do think that the SOI is a factual document, and there certainly can and should be changes made to the contract and things like that, but that won't be done here.
Okay, so I hear a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, could you reread the motion, please?
To approve the resolution accepting the Calpella County Water District Sphere of Influence update as presented today, striking 2 sections on page 8. 1, but lacks but lacks additional water capacity, and the complete sentence, Calpella County Water District is currently under a moratorium for new service hookups because the district currently does not have water available for any new customers.
Thank you. The resolution number is 151611. Any more discussion? Anybody from the public like to comment again on the motion?
I have some discussion.
Yes.
Because I can't read this over again this minute before we vote. Is there anywhere else in here that it says,
That were brought up from public comments?
Right. I'm just uncomfortable voting at this point because I thoroughly need to read it again to make sure we're correcting any inaccuracies.
John?
Well, I agree, and that's, the principal reason that we really shouldn't be adopting this as it's written today. I think the entire document really should be reviewed in light of the new information, and I don't see that delaying this 1 month creates any burden on anyone. But
Except, John, for our budget. Because every time that you delay, it costs more money for our budget.
we have put extra money into our budget, or we're about to do so, in order to provide funding to get things done and hopefully do them right. So I would be very uncomfortable to approve this.
Angela, go ahead.
If Dave Redding, the general manager, approved it, how can we doubt that? How can we doubt that?
We have factual documentation in front of us that casts a new light on it.
Let's move to another question. Barry?
Thank you. I'd like to ask George, this is the SOI. It is not the MSR.
That's right.
There is a motion that has deleted some of the language, and I'd like to hear your response to that.
Yes, I believe that the action, the motion and second with the changes addresses the issue that you heard in the testimony. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify this is a sphere boundary update. It is going to define that boundary and allow them to move forward with a much anticipated annexation. When that annexation comes forward, one of the first things that you'll have will be an updated municipal service review, so there will be a perfect opportunity to do that. So I believe that with the changes that I've heard and we've recorded, you could act on this SOI this morning.
Gary?
And as a follow-up, being that you do have a meeting this afternoon,
Right.
Could you please, depending how this motion comes down, would you please bring back a report to us?
I will.
Because I think it's important enough that we at least get an update. And with the annexation taking place, an updated MSR, we'll get it correct at that time.
Yes, we anticipate
assuming.
with the successful outcome of the meeting this morning that we will be bringing Millview to you as a workshop item next month in March. And I think that would be a great opportunity, more than just a report. You're going to get a look at that SOI update, and it's really going to relate very nicely to this as well.
Teresa and John?
Page 6, on overview, current agency operations, last sentence in the first paragraph. The district is currently under a moratorium for new water service connections due to a lack of water availability. Is that true or not true?
I'll ask our Calpella rep. Is that true, Angela?
Where is it?
Current agency, first paragraph, top of page 6.
Okay.
Isn't that something we're correcting right now on page 8?
Well, because we are under a moratorium, we cannot connect anyone right now.
No, but the part where it says due to a lack of water availability. Is that true or not true?
It's
Well,
Well,
from the public
From
comments.
what's going on, it's not true.
It's not true.
Okay, well then I think we need to, see, we just found something else in here and we were ready to vote on it. So I think we need to postpone this.
So I have a possible,
Oh, John, we have John next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, based on the comments of the executive director and the, which included the statement that the MSR is going to be updated, we're going to be looking at that next month. I am comfortable supporting the motion on the floor because the SOI, is based on the information in the MSR. If that was incomplete or lacking, it kind of flows through. But we will have an opportunity to correct that, and this new information, I'm certain, will be incorporated into the MSR when it comes forward. Or I'd be very surprised if it's not. So anyway, I can support the motion.
Holly?
Thank you.
Holly, do you want to add something?
I don't
Because
want
I'd
to
like
mess
to
it up
get,
more.
this is going to be a long meeting. I'd
It
like to
is.
get going.
I was going to suggest that we bump this item to later on in the meeting, just so that we could, at a break later on today, just review it like Teresa had suggested. I mean, that's a potential.
No,
We could
I
do the
think that
motion
it-
then.
I think we need to move forward.
Okay.
Let's go
too.
ahead and vote on the motion. If there's no more,
What about
Comments?
that I just found? Can we change that?
it's up to the
Is
maker of the
anybody,
motion.
is the maker of the motion opening to,
Yes, I am willing to, you have to tell me again.
how about just delete that sentence?
It
Or
would
just say
be
it's under a moratorium period?
in the
Yeah.
first paragraph, the amendment to the motion would be to delete the last sentence.
Yes, I accept that.
Well,
Wait, let me see if the.
the moratorium for Millview has been lifted. I don't know that it's been lifted for anyone else. The conditions may exist where it could be lifted, but I don't think we have that official notice.
I think the question was, there was a lack of water. I don't think that's accurate.
If
So-
that's all that.
But that's what we're,
Well, was that the basis for the moratorium, which is what the sentence
Yes.
says?
So, the last sentence on page
6 of
Put a period
29.
after the word connections and delete the rest of the sentence.
Oh, I wish Dave was here. Oh, my God.
I'm going to ask the clerk if, do you have that?
So.
Can you read it back, please?
The entire motion or just the addition to the motion?
No, wait, first of all, I want to make sure the approval of with the second. Who seconded the motion?
I did. I approve that.
Okay, now you can go ahead and tell us.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. Teresa, you said the period after what?
The district
Connection.
is currently under a moratorium for new water service connections, period.
Perfect. Okay.
All right, you want to read it one last time? We got to vote on
The
this.
entire,
Yes, let's hear it one more time.
the motion was to approve Resolution 15-16-11, accepting the Calpella County Water District Sphere of Influence update as presented today with three portions stricken. Page 6, paragraph 1, the phrase "due to a lack of water availability for any new customers" would be stricken. Page 8, last paragraph, section "but lacks additional water capacity" would be stricken. And in the same paragraph, the whole sentence, "Calpella County Water District is currently under a moratorium for new service hookups because the district currently does not have water available for any new customers" would be stricken.
Is that the understanding of everybody?
Yep.
Okay, let's have a.
Parenthetical comment.
Yes, go ahead.
no.
I just find it odd that after all the talk about, well, gosh, the district manager has approved this, we're now deleting a statement that is based on
Yeah.
a statement by the district general manager made August 2015.
I see that too.
Good point. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McNerlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Hammerstrom,
Aye.
Commissioner Madrigal. Yes. Commissioner McCowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Silver,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward.
Yes. So, the resolution passes 7-0. Let's, thank you, Lee, for your input. I would hope that you can talk to the managers, George, regarding the the contract.
Yes,
and
starting
that,
at 1 p.m. today.
this will hopefully get cleaned up in our Millview workshop as well.
Yes, we will be bringing that back and report on our coordination with general managers, absolutely.
And I agree with some of the commissioners up here that this was more of an MSR issue, and we need to probably clean that up as soon as we can as well, even though it's 2 years old, I think, now. But this is kind of difficulties we have voting these things in. The next day, a lot of this information becomes misinformation again, and we could be doing this constantly, but that was an important issue that Lee Howard brought up. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the Redwood Valley Water District sphere of influence update. Keep the public hearing open.
Yes, Commissioners, this also was a workshop item. You heard testimony from the Redwood Valley CWD General Manager. At that meeting, we have since provided him with draft information. And so we have incorporated comments that we heard at the workshop. They are shown in strikeout underline at the end of the discussion. Also, there's language that has been added about the long-term debt obligations and how those may affect the barrier, or how they may be a barrier to consolidation, because this is a district that has been in the discussions about consolidation. So we wanted to acknowledge that, and there's been some real minor edits in the discussion item as well. This district has its sphere of influence is the same as the district boundary, and there is no proposed change in that. The district manager has had a chance to, we've been in touch with the district manager since your workshop, and he's had a chance to review this and has commented that he feels it reflects the current condition. So with that, you have a resolution 15-1612, and it's ready for your action, duly noticed as a public hearing item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on the Redwood Valley SOI? We should put you on a committee for reviewing all these SOIs.
I refuse. Again, Lee Howard. I think that you can all recognize yourself as part of the state of California. Is that not right? Again, this SOI leaves out as much as it puts in. The simple fact is that there's a cease and desist order adopted 2005 to Redwood Valley with 4 areas of the district that are out of their place of use, and they haven't corrected it. You saw fit at LAFCo to go ahead and put them in a annexation, but they didn't go ahead and do the rest of the stuff. So, you know, and I will leave this order WR 2005-0013. It spells out a lot more than just the areas that are outside of their place of use. The second thing is there's no mention in here at all that they've shut down the water treatment plant over a year ago at Redwood Valley and are no longer operating that. I think it's a pretty important part of the puzzle. All their water is for domestic, is being pumped through Calpella to Redwood Valley, upwards to 600 gallons a minute. It seems like that's a pretty important piece of the puzzle, and that everybody should know that, and how that goes on. Also, their repeated tries at doing away with their own judgment plays into this a lot. They've tried to manipulate the judge. Old Judge Luther wasn't a very good manipulator, though. So you have the requirements that are in there. They don't have a moratorium against them. They got a judgment against them for a Superior Court judge that says they cannot do anything else. I leave that with you for your edification, if you so please.
Do you need copies of those back?
At your convenience on those. The simple fact that one of the things that I said for the previous one, that they are Russian River flood constituents, Redwood Valley is not, and it needs to be shown in this thing that they aren't. I know you didn't put it into the Calpella one, but it is pretty important to somebody that has vested a bunch of money, voted, and became a member of something, and you won't even recognize it. Thank you for your time.
So Lee, let me ask you a question. Do you think any of this would have a bearing on reducing their SOI or increasing their SOI?
For Calpella, it certainly
No,
could.
this one.
For this one, it's hard to say, but it needs to be said, because right now, every senior water right holder in the lower end of this valley is being in the gun sights of Redwood Valley. They have no basis of right for the water they're pumping that I can find that comes out of Masonite that goes to Redwood Valley. Now, Calpella would have a basis of right for that because they're members, but Redwood Valley doesn't. They don't ask permission. They ask forgiveness after they get caught. But these are the kind of things that need to be spelled out.
Just to clarify, however, the water that is being pumped from Masonite Well 6 is pumped by Millview.
It's pumped by Millview, pumped by Calpella.
Well, that well, I believe, is under the control of Millview.
Well,
they then may make the water available to Calpella.
That's right, and Calpella makes it available to Redwood Valley. So it's a leap of faith there, you know, and how it goes down. And it, like I said, it doesn't go at 100 gallons a minute anymore. And the people of Calpella are definitely doing a service to these other people by letting them wheel it through there. So.
Gary?
Thank you. I believe some of that action was taken as drought measures and approved by, I can't remember whom, if it was the Drinking Water Division, State Water Resources Control Board, I can't remember, but Redwood Valley was no longer able to access water in Lake Mendocino.
Well, I don't believe that for one minute.
And I believe that it was approved to wheel water back during the drought. So
there was never a time that Redwood Valley couldn't have pumped out of the Redwood Valley facilities this past year. That's a fact.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
Sorry, Lee.
Sorry.
This is what you get when you come up and talk. So on page 53 of our packet, which is page 10 of this document, the very first sentence says that they do not provide services outside of their current boundaries.
That's what it says.
And you're saying that in fact they are?
By the definitions of the CDO, by the state of California, they have 4 areas that are out of their place of use. And remember, state's place of use and district's approval from LAFCo are 2 different things, but you have to have them both.
Okay.
So in this SOI, you have to have them both?
Doesn't say in this SOI, it doesn't even mention that there's a CDO against them.
Isn't
I
this
might wanna
another
pass that
issue
to
that would
staff.
be taken up with the MSR, not an SOI?
You can take it up anywhere you'd like. I'm just bringing it to your attention because
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Let's bring it
I
back.
would love clarification from staff on that
I'm gonna be-
differentiation.
This is still a public hearing. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, what was your question for the staff?
George, I realize this was just brought up, but one of the things in the document that we have in front of us is that they do not provide service outside of their district boundaries. Are you aware of this document about this state of California, and do you have any thoughts on that issue?
Excuse me. I'm not aware of that, and again, we haven't seen any mention of it in the record. We went back and looked at the MSR, coordination with staff. It has not come to our attention through our normal practices and our normal research.
Could you pass around that document? Is it coming?
Lee has provided the Superior Court order, and he has provided Order WR 2005-13. You want to, yeah. So.
Did you want to start, Molly?
So we'll move on. John, you had a question?
Well, I have a comment. Again, I think the issues that are being raised are primarily MSR issues. We are looking at adopting a sphere that is coterminous with district boundaries. If those boundaries were to be changed, it would need to be done based on information that would be in the MSR. I think that if there is specific language we can identify that we would improve the accuracy of this document by deleting or amending it, that'd be appropriate. But again, given that these are primarily things that I think should be covered in the MSR, I think we could, as we did just a minute ago, adopt this document today.
Okay.
I agree.
Any other comments? Carrie?
Again, I would just like to ask our executive officer, with the meetings you're having today, please include the same question about current service out of their boundaries, out of their area, and come back with a report at the March meeting.
Will do. I'm getting quite a list for Mr. Kohler.
Could I ask that maybe that report be emailed to us sooner?
Sure.
Because this is an issue that I like to, after a month, I lose some of the input. Doug?
Yeah, I have a question. If in fact they're, what I assume the assertion is that their state license to water does not include the entire district as the place of delivery. Mm-hmm. If that is in fact true, would that be a factor that would initiate a reduction of the size of their district?
I would have to say unlikely. We would certainly put language in the making a sphere smaller than its boundary.
Because they don't,
rarely
because their
happens.
water right doesn't
Yeah,
include their whole district. It's,
right.
it's a weird situation for a district to.
Yes. I think there's other ways to accomplish, to address this issue rather than redrawing the sphere boundary, and I'd like to explore those.
Okay.
Okay, got a motion?
No, I have a question.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I was
Go ahead,
just, noting that second paragraph under capacity and service on page 7 of the document. And it just seems to me that that could definitely be written more clearly and have more meaning. Where it says the district's water supply consists of, their water supply consists of a mostly unusable permit to divert water, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, later, in the next paragraph, it again talks about the Redwood Valley CWD water permit is unusable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that's kind of strange language to me. Seems like you'd want to say something like the district's right to deliver water derives from a something permit. I mean, an unusable permit is not a permit at all.
That's a good point.
So maybe
What
we
permit
should
are we
call it
talking
what
about?
it is.
Angela?
It is, it's basically an unusual permit. It's a right to so much water out of the Russian River flood control, but it's only at a certain time of year, and it's only when the lake is at a certain level. And usually they don't need it because it's only for irrigation. So as I understand it from Bill Kohler, it's a completely unusable permit.
Well, then, if it's unusable, then it doesn't exist.
But there is a
But it does
time.
exist.
It does exist, and you have to put it in there. There's a time and place that it can be used, but
Consists of an occasionally operative. I mean, I don't know. Mostly
Where are you, Dan?
I don't know. I will.
On the-
Seven.
I will exceed
Seven.
this area.
He's at the rewritten language.
Let's one at a time here. Holly, hurry up.
Dan's going over the section that we already wordsmithed, unfortunately.
Right.
I'm fine with that. In contrast to the last SOI, I actually, if in fact there is out-of-area service being provided, I think that absolutely should be addressed in this if we're in fact saying that there's not out-of-area service being provided. However, both of the documents that were
Pass by.
yeah, sort of like the evidentiary to back that up. I don't think either of them actually mention,
They
it doesn't
don't.
look, and I haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, but they're both referencing water capacity, or, water availability problems, not treating outside the area. So I would be very uncomfortable approving this if we weren't sure if they were providing service outside the area. But if I can, so I would like, in order to support any motion, I would like some sort of assurance that they are not actually serving people outside of their boundaries.
Okay. John and Doug,
Well,
and Carrie.
it seems based on the comments from the public that there may very well be some out-of-area service delivery. And, so I think we could do a little cleanup under the sphere of influence on page 6. And I think we could possibly address the concern on page 7 by simply striking the phrase mostly unusable, and then I think as you read through the entire paragraph, it does explain, in fact it concludes, these limitations represent a relatively narrow window of opportunity for diversions that can be as much as 70 days in wet years or as little as 1 or 2 days in dry years. And if we wanted, we could add language that therefore the limits specified in the permit do not reflect water that can actually be diverted.
that's correct.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah, as to the out-of-area service question, I thought that the statement was not that it was serving areas outside the boundaries of the district, but serving areas outside the boundaries of the state water permit delivery area, which is different. So
Okay.
it's in the boundaries of the district, but outside what's on their state license or permit or whatever it is.
Okay, but
as
for purposes
its
of
boundaries.
but within the sphere.
That was within the boundaries of the district.
Okay, Carrie, then Carol.
I'm,
You're done.
yeah,
I just wonder that we heard that they were serving outside the district, but we haven't verified that. So at this point, it's hearsay. It's not definitely a fact.
Right.
So we have to go by what the managers has said is the truth, I think. And again, when you go back to, the fact that they have a water treatment plant that might not be being used, that's something altogether different that should be shown up in the MSR. What's actually happening on the ground. And you don't necessarily know that from just going through their documents.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, I just wish this would have been brought up at the workshop.
Yeah.
I was hoping they'd be slam dunks today after the workshop. Any other comments,
One more.
Angela?
I don't see how this changes the sphere. it doesn't change, does it? Change the sphere in any way?
I think what Commissioner Hammerstrom said, that these areas outside the state permit, if they are in fact inside the district boundary, then no,
They don't.
wouldn't.
But if, are they?
We haven't had, I cannot answer that because we need to look at the materials provided.
Yeah, I don't think we've had anybody even say that there's out-of-district
No.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Lou was saying.
So we have a motion. John, got a motion?
Yeah, I will try a motion. And it would be the recommended action. And I would like to acknowledge also, because under sphere of influence, so a little more discussion. The second sentence under sphere of influence says, furthermore, there are no reported out-of-district service connections. And services provided are limited by infrastructure and elevational changes in the surrounding valley. Well, they're also limited by water availability. So, and if we accept that the clarification regarding out-of-district service connections, the motion is to put a period at the end of further, there are no reported out-of-district service connections, period. Services, new sentence, services provided are limited by, new language, water availability, comma, infrastructure and elevational changes in the surrounding valley. And on page 7, the second paragraph under capacity and service, strike mostly unusable. And that's it.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion, clarification? Do we need to read the motion again? I think it was pretty succinct.
Amazing.
Very good job. All right, we'll do a roll call, please, on the motion.
I'm trying to find where the mostly unusable.
Oh, it's on.
It's in
Oh, there
the
it is.
second
Yeah.
Thank you.
paragraph.
Strike that. So we're ready for roll call? Commissioner McNerlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Hammerstrom?
Aye.
Commissioner Madrigal?
No.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Silver?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
And can I clarify the second on that motion, please?
Uh,
Thank you.
It,
It was Carrie, I believe.
yes.
Thank you, so noted.
And motion passed 6-1. I would like to now, I should have, this, I'm a bad chair. The public hearing is closed. John?
And also, we definitely need to flag some of these issues for review when the MSR is updated.
Very good point.
Good point.
On our list.
Okay, thank you all for your input. Sorry it was a little more difficult than I anticipated, but very well, job done, thank you. We'll move on to workshop. I'd just like to point out, though, that we'd like to meet with, or I promised our commission council that we would call him between 11 and 11:15. So hopefully the workshops don't go past that. If they do, we'd like to maybe postpone it.
We're still on public hearings.
And then, we're still on public hearings, correct?
We have a
And
continued
then,
further
one of the items later on with the JPA, Angela has jury duty. She's going to be leaving around 12. I'd like to go to that item before she does. She has some more input on it.
I'm sorry, which one?
The
JPA.
JPA, the role of LAFCo. Okay,
Anything you
well,
can do to help me with my reports? Yes.
Okay.
all right, we'll move on to Round Valley County Water District Sphere Influence continued public hearing from January, I believe.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion.
Um,
Yeah, let's go. Just move
Okay.
on it.
I'll move that we approve the extension to April the April meeting.
Great.
Of 2016.
Yes, of 2016 for the Round Valley, I'm sorry, I'm off my pages.
Approve the continuance.
Approve the continuance, thank you. For the Round Valley County Water District Sphere of Influence.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I have a discussion.
Okay, we believe we'll have a report from Round Valley by April?
Well,
Does that get sufficient time?
We believe so, but I just want to be clear, and I love how you started that off, believe me. I don't mean, but staff is saying one of two things could happen in April. One is, or we're suggesting that, no, we're not telling you, we're suggesting that one of two things. One is we will continue to coordinate and try to get the two parties together and give them that full 60 days to do that. However, if that doesn't happen, staff would like to bring back a sphere that is the same as the boundary, so that not to intrude on the sovereignty of any government. And so with that record, I am happy to continue.
All right, Collie.
So my question was just about what additional outreach is being done to the tribe, and if we can we, as LAFCo, provide them any information about similar situations in other tribal areas? You know, is that something that, can we, beyond just saying, okay, you have more time to think about it, kind of reach out to make sure that they have the information that would be helpful?
Yeah, two things are going to happen. One is, we hope, is that tribal district interaction, but then in addition to that, your legal counsel is conducting some independent research in the next 60 days, and we'll be able to advise you. So when we come back in 60 days, you'll know exactly what the two entities have been, the district and the tribal government have been able to accomplish. You'll have some advice from your legal counsel. I think you'll have a good basis for action.
Okay, and hopefully we can share that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can share that with them.
Yeah. This is something that we will be forwarding on.
Does this affect other areas where there are tribal lands? Because there's tribal lands throughout the county.
It must, right?
So this might be a precedent.
You've got, I think it's wonderful. We're going to get a legal opinion because you do have a number of tribes.
Yeah, and surely we're not the only ones in the
And
state
there's
of
two
California.
in Redwood Valley
Right.
area. There's
Hopland.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody from the audience who'd like to comment on the Round Valley County Water District Sphere of Influence in the continuation? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on that, please.
Let's go the other way. Commissioner Silver,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan,
Yes.
Commissioner Madrigal,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerstrom.
Yes.
Commissioner McNerlin, Commissioner Ward.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for the quick motion, too. Number 8, under public hearings, proposed budget amendment for fiscal year 2015-16.
Yes. Thank you. You saw this as an item at your last meeting, and then since then, there has been a subsequent executive committee meeting on this, including this particular topic. And so what we've really done is expanded the budget picture, so you get to see we just focused on operating expenses, so this would be a budget amendment picture that is consistent with the original adopted. So there's really, there's a couple things. The items that were brought to you, the additional for the sphere of influence updates, that's pretty much what we had talked to you about and presented to you at the January meeting. In going back and looking at the budget, and this was pretty much just a cleanup item, but in the original budget, there wasn't you had taken a separate action on the moving the 7,000 funds for the MSR forward, but it hadn't actually shown up in the budget. So we wanted, this is a great opportunity to get everything accounted for at mid-year. So so we plugged that number back in, the 7,000 currently at 6,300. The prior version, because we hadn't seen anything from the county on A87, and because this commission has directed that you're handling the bank accounts and you're issuing all the checks, there was an expectation that that A87 number would drop. It did not. It's still over $2,000, so that is included. And so those are the primary things: the SOI update increase, restoration of some A87 costs, and those have come directly from the county, just to clean up to account for the account 7,000 in the budget. And then there's a couple of other just minor adjustments here. We are asking for a little more bookkeeping money to help out with the audits that are coming down through the rest of the year. And so with that, I think you have a very good mid-year picture. I think you have this is a good, we believe that this is, with these adjustments, this will take us through to the end of the year. And again, Commissioner Ward, Chair Ward has gone back through and looked at cash reserves, and there is in there, you'll see that it's over $70,000. So this adjustment could come from those unrestricted reserves, unrestricted funds. They would have no impact on any contributions from any of your member organizations, and it could be accommodated with no effect on your reserves. So we're recommending that you open a public hearing, consider this, and take action on the budget amendment as presented.
Okay, thank you. So I will open the public hearing at 10:15. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at 10:15 and 30 seconds and bring it back to the commission. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move approval of the recommended action.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
One little part, number 26, the in-county travel and stipends, it was 4,300, now it's down to 2,000. I don't know if that's gonna work, because that was before it was okay for us to go for our stipends. I think it needs to go back up.
Yeah, and I'm remembering we brought that up at the executive committee.
Right.
Yeah, because that is,
Okay.
there's going to be an impact to that.
Right.
Yeah, we saw some today, claims. Yeah, John.
Well, given that it was zero at mid-year, I'm, not too concerned about
Okay.
Or more.
including the 2,000, and we'll see how that plays out. And again, I think the overall budget is sound.
Well, I may add too that the conferences and registration, our next conference is until September, which is in the next fiscal year. So we probably won't be expending the $3,000 in this fiscal year for that. So, we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote on this, please.
Commissioner Silver?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Madrigal? Commissioner Hammerstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner McNerlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, sorry.
Aye.
Thank you.
So, we'll see how the next year budget goes. It might be a little more difficult. Did you make a comment?
Yes, I'd like to make a request of the chair to move item 12 up on the workshop so that some global issues can be raised and taken care of before you go to closed session with your lawyer.
Yeah, we've got an hour, so we're going to go right into Potter Valley. Which one are you
Well,
more?
Well, I'm requesting that you move to item 12, which only concerns
Oh,
the fire
12.
district.
I see. Anybody have a problem with that?
I have no problem if we just stay with the
You still
agenda,
think-
because item 9 flows right out of our last item.
Okay. Hang in there.
I thought you just took care of item 9, sorry.
Thanks, Tony.
Mr. Ward, Lee Howard, I will gladly give you the opportunity to copy my stuff, but I'll be damned if I'll pay the bill to the county for copy cost.
So he just gave us a bill? Put
Who
that
gave
in
a-
the agenda?
I think
I'm
it
not
was intended for us.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
It
going to go there.
just got delivered to the wrong person.
All right, we'll still move ahead. Let's get the Potter Valley Irrigation District's
What?
update.
Number 9.
9.
Oh,
Budget
I'm sorry. You're
Something in the
right.
Brown Act about
The
reading.
preliminary budget review fiscal year 2016-17 is a workshop item.
That's how you know.
I'll
Yes,
let you
uh,
start.
Right, you got a first look at this at your January meeting. This now is in a preliminary form. We've itemized for you in the staff report where we're proposing some adjustments in operating expenses, services. There's a rent increase we're accounting for. Audit, we have the action, we're anticipating that those audits are going to move forward. We're anticipating some increase in memberships, and then MSR reviews and SOI updates. And again, so in applications, we're just putting that number in there. Obviously, it will be completely driven by what applications are filed and what deposits. So we're just putting it at around $30,000, just to indicate that it is a round number and will be completely determined by applicants' filing. So we wanted to get that in there, and this is just to your action today. Would just need a comment on this. Then the subsequent actions will be that we will send this out to all the member organizations as a preliminary draft budget. Then you will conduct a hearing on the draft. We will then take whatever action you take and send it again to the member organizations so that they get a look at draft and final, and then this will come back to you as a final. So this is just first, very early look, and you'll get 2 more opportunities to review this, and the member organizations will also have their opportunities to review and comment to you.
Okay, thank you. Carrie and then John.
Yes, and we just had a discussion on item line 26, which is account 6740. And we're showing preliminary 2,000 for in-county travel and stipends. And then it's also the question about travel and lodging expense, which I'm not sure where LAFCo's annual meeting is going to be held.
Santa Barbara, I believe.
Yes, it is going to be Santa Barbara.
So that needs to be increased.
So yeah, we did bring this up at the executive committee, and we were gonna, I believe we directed to come up with an amount that would be if all the commissioners possible were going to be doing their stipend for the year, plus some for travel. So do we have an amount for that? Suggested amount?
Well, we did look at what we've been receiving, even with the ones we've been receiving that you acted on and approved today. Even those, we don't believe that that'll exceed the amount for this current year, and so we were bringing that forward. But we could certainly, there's a limited number of those stipends and travel that are being requested, so we think a lower number from the original budget is appropriate, but we could certainly increase that to, say, 3,000, and then if we had conferences, even with a number of commissioners going to Santa Barbara, 5,500, we could probably increase that to more like 6,000. And so, yeah, I'd be happy to make those changes in that preliminary to allow more attendance and recognition of where the conference is going to be.
John and Carrie?
And in addition to those, we are showing an increase in the LAFCo apportionment fees from $125,000 to $156,000. However, even with our amendment to the current budget, we still have a considerable available fund balance that has not been allocated. And we have been discussing for some time what's the appropriate method of distributing back to the member jurisdictions that unallocated fund balance. And I think a great way to do it would be to keep the apportionment fees the same for next year and instead utilize the available fund balance.
May I make a comment on that? I did do a recap of our cash accounts at the end of December, which is our end of our 6-month fiscal year. We had $102,480 in our cash and savings bank, and then we had cash and treasury with the county, $48,572, and then we have accounts receivable, still some districts still owe money of roughly $11,114, which gives us a total funds of $162,167 at the end of December. If we, I estimated the amount of expenses left to spend in this fiscal year of $73,000. The additional that we just approved from the previous agenda item of $71,42, and then we hold $7,452 in cash for the Fort Bragg detachment, which we still haven't got a result in how to deal with that. So it does give us $73,000 in funds at the end of this fiscal year. So adding $31,000, we do have enough funds to do it. Doug?
Yeah, and I thought that at the executive committee meeting, that's what we discussed, is keeping the apportionment fees the same. And,
yes.
And again, this year, taking that differential out of our unallocated fund balance, or whatever it is we're calling it.
Good.
Carrie?
I just wanted to raise, these questions, have them discussed, and but I do feel, that I would like to see which districts haven't paid, have an update on that at the next meeting.
I have that.
But on the other hand, I think we need to look at, some type of, what would you say, reduction.
I think there's like 7 that haven't paid us. One of them is the largest is the, I believe it was the sanitation district, was the largest one.
Which sanitation
The
district?
Ukiah Valley Sanitation District,
Oh,
It's probably a significant amount too.
11,000, or not 11, it was, $9,000
9,000.
of the 11.
but I do think it should be public and a part of our agenda
Okay.
for the upcoming meeting.
So I know we do have a couple of stabs at this budget, but I do have some questions myself. What is internet and website costs? What are those costs?
Yes. The Pacific Internet, a local vendor here, provides our internet service. They host the website that the commission uses, and then they provide services to your office. And this reflects the charge from Pacific Internet for those services.
Okay, good. Then on the audit services, we have already approved a engagement letter with them for $3,000 for fiscal year 16-17.
No, you approved a letter of engagement for
For-
$3,025 for 1450.
1415.
Yes.
So you're assuming that the 16, we're going to expend 4650 instead of the 3,000?
Yes, this
Does-
4650 number has two parts. One is it accounts today you authorized a initial payment deposit to Paling and Paling for 1415 in the amount of 1,520. So the 4650 represents the balance that you would pay Paling and Paling on the successful completion of 1415, and the amount that you would pay them for 1670. 1450,
no.
1560, excuse me. So 1516 full amount, 1415.
I thought
remaining
we've
balance.
already expended 3,000 for the 1314, and then we just paid, we'll be paying the 3,000 for this year, and then next year would be a whole different thing. I'm not gonna argue, I just think that's a little high. I think we're double paying it. The other issue I had is you're increasing MSR reviews next year from 5,000 to 15,000 because those are updated ones from your schedule that you presented to us. That's only 7 MSRs that we're going to be updating next year. Is it going to cost us $15,000 for those 7 to be updated?
It potentially could. These, as you know, we account for all time and expense. We're looking at this as a not to exceed. These are these are going to be pretty involved MSRs. We're not finding as complete a record in the. They are updates, but as you've been hearing, what we're finding when we dig into these prior MSRs is just taking us a lot of time and a lot of effort to sort through and bring these current. So we do want to allow additional time.
But we're not starting with scratch on these. These have already been completed.
Yeah.
There is something in the record. I'm not sure you're not starting from scratch.
I agree.
I'm just saying that I want to present a realistic number based on what we're finding in the MSRs that we've worked with so far. It's just taking, this is about a couple $1,000 an MSR, and believe me, that goes fast when you're having to go through and do a lot of research and look for all the things that need to be done. And so I'm giving you what I feel is a realistic estimate. We won't exceed it if we don't have to.
I agree.
Angela?
Yes, from my research and what I've looked at, MSRs, they're so poorly written that I understand exactly what you're going to have to go through to get these updated. And it is like going through scratch, because starting from scratch, because so many of the numbers do not correlate to what is actually happening. And he's going to have to do that. I have one other item, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I've got a couple more, but go ahead.
Okay, the special district training support, $12,000. We did not use all the $12,000 this year, and then again, it's going to be $12,000 for the next year.
No, we're only going to expend it 1 year.
1 year, okay.
It won't be any for.
And I do
next
believe
fiscal year.
that we
Okay.
have a contract with CSD. I do believe the $12,000 will be expended this year.
Okay.
Okay, another item that I had was bookkeeping. You've increased it $700. Your contract says that you'll be assisting the treasurer, and you will submit monthly statements to the commission. That's part of your basic services.
Yes, it
So what additional bookkeeping do you see?
We're anticipating with, all that is no change. We're figuring that coordination with the auditor is going to take that extra money, that providing the auditor for what they need to do the audit we haven't done it with this particular auditor, so again, we're just trying to allocate enough money so that we can support the auditor's efforts and hopefully control their costs, but we think that's going to just take a little bit of extra effort.
Okay. Last, just like the commission to consider, obviously the 2016-17 budget, we may or may not have the same executive officer. We'll be deciding that, down the road here, but I would like to consider that our clerk become a separate contract. We talked about this at the executive committee as well. Having that as a separate contract rather than under the wing of our executive officer. We've had some issues with small issues of who does what, and I think we need to have our thumb on exactly what our clerk needs to do, and I think a separate contract would help. That's something that we can consider down next month or two, but I think that's something that we should consider. Beth, you've even had an interest in pursuing that as well, so. Holly?
You know this from executive committee, but I do support that, and one of the things I was going to bring up later is just the materials for this meeting. How that was delivered was unsatisfactory to me, and I think it's kind of it's just a symptom of working with many different partners. So I would prefer to get the agenda and the materials from one source, and I think if we did do a separate contract with the clerk, that maybe we could do that. That would pool everything so that before the meeting I can search for one email and make sure, because I received materials from I think 3 or 4 separate emails, and it concerns me that how do I know if I got everything that I'm supposed to have? Kind of.
Teresa?
2 things, just to reiterate that. We got our agenda packet 1.5 business days before our meeting. That's completely unacceptable. I'm sending out emails Sunday night asking for information and trying to get through that information Monday morning before the meeting. Completely unacceptable. Secondly, regarding the $15,000 for MSR updates, if you take the second highest paid person in Planwest, which would be Colette at $84 an hour, that would mean she's spending 25 hours per MSR just for an update. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that's too much. I think it could be done in less than 25 hours per MSR. And that's the second highest paid person. Give it to an analyst lower down on the scale. That would be what, 30, 35 hours per MSR? That's not acceptable.
We closed the public hearing, but you might be a commissioner soon, one day.
Yes, and I
I'll let you take
just
your
want to
input.
remind the commission that the reason you're maintaining the 3-way split cost to the 3 different agency lists is because of the reserves, and that this commission should and direct staff to have a specific percentage of remaining reserves so that you don't spend it all the way down. In particular, if you're having legal issues, clearly there's going to be a need for that. But in general reserves, you should set a percentage, and I would recommend about 20%. And I think you can go and look at the not collected amounts that have to be encumbered by county staff later on in the budget process at the end of each budget year, that should also be accounted for in what reserves you maintain for your operation
So Tony,
budget.
the 73,000 I stated,
Yes.
that doesn't include the 100,000 we already have set aside for reserves,
Right.
for legal or general.
And I'm just saying that it would be nice to have a policy setting those percentages, because as you know, we used to keep a full year in reserve, and it was agreed in a prior year that would be spent down to appropriate levels given the last 20 years of experience.
Well, the last 20 years of experience, we have had not any large attorney fees either, so.
Correct.
To say it won't happen in the future, but
Yes.
we reevaluated.
But you can approach it by a policy for each budget year following.
Okay,
So.
thanks for your input. All right, so we have this is a workshop. We've got some input. We'll have a couple stabs at it. I recognize Teresa, with your thing, I also would like to dive into that a little more. I think I recall 2 or 3 of the MSR updates that are original, or not original, but Frank McMichael did them, and I remember reading them, and they're that thick. They're not something that was just thrown together on 14 pages. They were pretty in-depth, so I'm not sure if they really need a lot of update on those real thick ones, but maybe from what Angela's talking about, there is some issues with that. So I like
Maybe there's
to
a
pull those
balance in
back
there,
out
yeah.
and see what kind of time there is involved, because that 15,000 does have an issue with me as well. John, do you have any other questions? Holly?
Jerry, I understand wanting to stick with the agenda, but if we do have people that are wanting to speak specifically, I'm not
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
just,
think we
John's,
should at
John's
least-
suggestion.
at least finish this discussion.
John's suggestion was to go on to the budget, and then we could
And then go to the
go
fire?
to the fire.
Okay, sorry, I thought we were.
Now we're gonna, just wanted to stick with this, the money. Doug?
Yeah, just a little further discussion on the MSR cost. And Commissioner Silver brought up that some of our, going over this over and over and over again can end up being too costly. So I would hope that you can develop in the processes that that you've anticipated the sorts of things that have been brought up in the past, and that the staff brings to us for our action something that's maybe included a lot of the things that we may go back and forth about, so that perhaps we could reach the point where these things only come to us for one workshop and then a follow-up adoption on the next. So
I would very much like that also, and if I can just respond through the chair. The other thing is that we are making notes of what we learned, and it is affecting the questionnaires that go out. So we're asking better questions right at the beginning based on the experience and based on what we're finding in the record. And so I think with that, we have, that is going to be, make things more cost effective as well.
So, yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to also reiterate, I think when we start looking into the cost of the MSRs, I think it would be helpful to hear from the EO about, I would believe this would take more of a team approach to tackle an MSR. You wouldn't just assign it to one staff member. So having a sense of the team that's involved, the different billing rates, that kind of an idea helps us also plan for the future when we redo these again. So I think it would be helpful to have an understanding of whether it's really a team of people in the EO's office or if it's just one staff member.
Doug?
Yeah, and then as to what our next steps are with this preliminary budget, is it April that we would want to have a final decision as to what we're putting out as our budget, so that it goes out to the districts and the appropriate public hearing and response time and all that comes forward? And so do we have until April to create that, or is it sometime earlier, or what is it?
We're expecting that this would be a hearing. You would hold a public hearing on the draft budget in April, and then we would then your obligation, I think, is to adopt the budget by June 15th. So if I'm right about that, you could then hold a subsequent hearing on the final budget early June. It's either May 1 or June 1. Anyway, I'll find out. But you're getting a really early start on your budget review, and there's sufficient time to have public hearings on draft and final prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. Carol?
In the MSRs this time, having heard what we heard this morning, in which it's not necessarily the way in which we've always gotten the information for the MSRs, that there might have to be searches beyond that into legal stuff for the state and things of that sort. This might actually help defend the cost as presented. In fact, they might have to go further than their normal sources to get us accurate information. since we've gotten to the SOI this morning and found other information out there that nobody even on staff of the agencies knew about.
Well,
So
again, it's what we get from the general managers and the board of directors too.
I think we might have to go further than that
Well.
to get real stuff, so that we don't have to, be promulgating misinformation.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm comfortable leaving the amounts in for the work because, for one thing, we can't really anticipate what issues may come up. We will find that some of the agencies are in dispute with each other, and that has a tendency always to draw out the conversation and add to the workload. The changes I am interested in are reducing the apportionment or maintaining it at 125,000, drawing the additional needed funds from the available fund balance. And then we did talk about specific adjustments to line 26 and 28. And did we have a consensus on what those amounts ought to be?
26 and 27, I think, is what you mean.
Right, 26.
county
I
and
thought it
travel.
was 28, the conferences.
Above it's the travel and lodging expense.
Okay.
And this,
Well,
and above that.
So again,
stuff.
did we arrive at a consensus on those three items then, I guess? Or did we think conferences was okay?
I
as
think
it is?
conferences will be okay.
Okay, so what's the recommendation for 26 and for 27? 26, was that?
I think we were going to maintain the 4,300 that we had from the previous year,
Okay.
for the current year.
And the 5,000 for travel
Yeah,
and lodging?
5,000 for travel and lodging. Teresa?
Regarding apportionment fees, if we have enough money in our reserves and we have districts operating on shoestring budgets, I believe it is our duty to lower the apportionment fees and not hoard their money.
You know that I agree with Teresa. I am in support of that. One of the things we had discussed at the executive committee, however, was not yo-yoing those fees. So if we could come up with a reduction plan, I think Doug had suggested, like maybe for 3, if we could figure out something that we could maintain, we could commit to maintaining for 3 years, say, that districts would be able to plan better. The issue of a reserve policy is a whole nother thing that we talk about. I think every time we talk about the budget, how much should we have in reserves? What if there's a legal claim, et cetera, but that lowering the apportionment fees is something that I'm always interested in discussing.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, since I've been on the commission, we have lowered the apportionment fees significantly. I believe they used to be at least 145,000, could have been higher.
They were higher, yeah.
So we have reduced them, and I think it's, rather than lower them further and then put ourselves in a position where we're having to yo-yo them significantly higher, I think it's prudent to maintain it as it is, use the available fund balance for the extra expenses we're anticipating, and of course we can review this on an annual basis going forward. So I would move that we direct the executive office to publish and distribute the preliminary budget, making the following changes. Showing that the apportionment fees be maintained at 125,000 and the available fund balance be utilized for the additional expenses budgeted, and that line 26 be adjusted to 4,300, line 27 to 5,000, and the total operating expenses and net expenses be adjusted accordingly.
Do we really need a motion, or can you just direct
Well-
Audio to do that?
What do you need?
You can just make that recommendation. I will act on that recommendation and move this forward.
So withdraw your motion.
By order of the chair,
By order
if he
chair, we'll
agrees.
withdraw- we'll withdraw the motion then.
Thank
Well,
you.
no, by order of the
I-
chair.
Oh, order of
you
chair,
direct
okay, I
that
see.
action.
You can direct me to do this, and I will do it.
We have 2 or 3 more stabs at it ananyway, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah. This
With
is
those
just
three
to get it out
additions.
so that your member organizations can start looking at it. yes.
Okay. Before I ask you, Doug, there is, I think, maybe the executive committee may be looking at a reserve policy. There has been some suggestion in the past that we have a reserve sufficient enough for 1 year's worth of, or we keep it at 100,000. We have excess funds. The second thing I think the executive committee should review is sit down with the clerk and come up with a cost for the clerk services, because it may or may not have a material effect on next year's budget. So if that's okay with the commission, I'd like to have those 2 things set up in our next executive committee, John.
Well, actually, I don't see the need to review the reserve policy. We've discussed that extensively. If we were to change the reserve policy to provide for a year's operating expenses, we would be significantly increasing the apportionment only to maintain a reserve that we have never touched.
Well, I'm just saying the last 3 years, we've had this excess cash of over $60,000, $70,000.
Well, I
One
think-
time we had over 100.
So the action is to review policies regarding unutilized fund balance, or whatever we want to call it. But, you know, I don't want to
So the-
rehash the reserves.
So the
again.
reserve of 100,000 is sufficient in your eyes?
Does anyone disagree with that?
Well, I don't know.
I have a question.
Sure.
I've only have the benefit of being on this board for a year, so I don't see the reserve policy in front of me. What is it?
By budget, we're maintaining a reserve of 100,000.
Based on
Based
the
on
logic of what?
Well, in the past, we've had a legal reserve and a general reserve. I believe the general was 80 and the reserve for the legal was 20. So now we just changed our policy to make it 1 general reserve of 100.
So is this an official policy, or, because I don't remember going over this when we did the PPGs, or is this just a kind of
It's something we've maintained for the last
quasi-policy?
several years.
Maybe we should have an actual policy.
Well, maybe it is appropriate for the executive committee to review that and see if it's prudent
Memorialized
to
somewhere.
establish a formal policy. But frankly, the few agencies seek to maintain a reserve of a year's operating expenses. That would be.
I just brought it up
I
as a
haven't
suggestion.
relinquished the floor quite yet. May I finish?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Also, when we post this information, I would like us to provide to all the districts that we're giving this to our reserve policy and how much we have in reserve as well. I believe they should know that.
Okay. Okay, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, in that respect, it seems like on our budget, the reserve should be in here somewhere. And also, as revenues, maybe we should have a line that says we're the amount that's coming in the budget from the unallocated fund balancer as a revenue source, so that that's transparent where that's coming from, rather than just a line on here that says operating differences and a negative number. It's like,
Okay, let's move it on. We'll
Okay,
have
I
time to
just-
discuss this in the
Yeah,
future.
I do
again.
agree that we should talk about it at the executive
Okay.
committee, because the city of Willits has a reserve policy. And, I mean, we didn't always, but we,
And we may come back
Developed
with a
it.
recommendation to keep it the same. I just think
Yeah.
it needs to be discussed. But I do agree with Doug and Teresa, George, that we put our reserves on the budget as well.
Okay?
Okay, I think you have direction.
Yes.
We'll talk about this again in April.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on. Can we skip Potter Valley and Hopland workshop and go into countywide fire protection? Is there one particular one you want to speak on, Tony?
Well, I submitted written comments to make this as painless as possible, and it's more, these comments are global to all fire districts, so I'm not going to make specific comments in the workshop. However, being a workshop, I think it's timely for me to make these comments, identifying additional revenue sources that have the support of both the judicial court system here in Mendocino County, as well as the Attorney General, as well as identifying some additional revenue resources that have recently been identified and are being worked on, I believe, by an ad hoc committee of the Board of Supervisors with the fire districts. So I just want to make sure that a past motion made by this commission is rescinded or modified to allow for this language to move forward into the MSR process for the fire districts of Mendocino County.
Gary?
In response back, Mr. Orth, LAFCo is a watchdog agency for the state of California, not the districts and not the county.
Yep.
And that's not occurring currently. And I think LAFCo stepping out and making that assumption that it should, I think is inappropriate.
Well, the grand jury, there is a grand jury report that speaks to these matters as well as past work by prior boards of supervisors that would illustrate these issues. And so, again,
At LAFCo, and it's been in LAFCo's literature for how many years?
Commissioner Wattenberger made regular reports to LAFCo on the process of the ad hoc committee process, and made LAFCo a partner in realizing that this was an issue that needed to be cured moving forward for the revenues for fire districts.
So there is a process going on by which this may or may not be established as a fact.
Hold on one moment.
Well, fine. You hold on one moment.
I was trying to jump in between when Jerry just stepped out for 1 second.
Oh.
I'm thinking maybe if Tony can finish his comments and then bring it up to the board, or is yours a direct question?
Well, I was just going to say that I feel uncomfortable stepping in and having LAFCo make a statement that a fact exists when that fact is in process of being determined by another process. And I just feel like I don't want to put this in a document saying it's a fact. That seems like putting my finger on the scale of the process that's going on to determine whether this is in fact a fact.
Okay, Tony, if you can finish your comments.
Sure.
So that we can.
Thank you. I do believe I still have the floor.
Yeah.
The executive director of LAFCo has experience in Humboldt County where this process is ongoing. As a matter of fact, the Attorney General's opinion was requested by the Humboldt Board of Supervisors. The opinion was generated directing all individual supervisors within the state of California to be aware of this process. It's available for their discretionary use in their budgets. And so also the court will be submitting a ruling between now and March before you go to public hearing on these MSRs. And that will be definitive with Mendocino County, I believe.
Carrie?
Thank you. I believe, Carrie, I'm sorry, but I believe John had his...
Well, my comment is that unless we have direct questions of Mr. Orth, we accept his comments and we reserve our discussion until after we've heard public comment.
In addition, I made comments as to the critical nature of the way the ISO operates and that fire districts respond to provide station coverage. You will find in the MSRs many of the districts stating the bad state of repair of their stations and inadequate coverage in some districts. It was removed from the Potter Valley. I requested specific reference to it and it was disallowed. The last time I appeared during a public hearing, this is a workshop and I believe staff can further look at this issue. It's a very critical one to the citizens of Mendocino County and the way fire districts perform their services to their citizens. And I do believe MSR should be accurate in describing the manner in which stations are located throughout Mendocino County.
Thank you, Tony. Carrie.
Mr. Orth, I just want to make the statement, I'm not debating you.
Sure.
I just think it's inappropriate when we have this other process going on.
Which process?
Well, let's not debate.
I
you.
should say that the judge is preparing their ruling, and it's already been heard, and if you would interview your own deputy district county counsel, I think you would hear the way those rulings are expected and were made from the bench.
Thank you. So,
Any other public?
well, we didn't, it wasn't a public hearing. Are there any other public input? Okay, seeing none, we are close to our closed session, so John, do you have something we
Well,
suggest
I have
we
a
go on?
comment, and of course, this is not, it's a global comment to the Fire District MSR workshop, and it's the same issue that we discussed extensively at our last meeting. We made an agreement on what we thought was appropriate. I don't see anything that's been said that would change the action we previously took, so I agree with the comments of Commissioner Hammerstrom and Brown. I do think that it would be helpful if Mr. Orth has specific language regarding the ISO rating to provide that to the commission, specifically the executive director, so he can transmit it to Mr. Baracco.
Teresa?
Can we please have time for a short bathroom break before we go into closed session?
Yeah, can we go on to that? Is there an issue with stopping where we're at?
Yes.
Not an issue with it? Okay.
We can stop for a short break, but I have to leave at 12:15, and we still have Hopland, and we still have the JPA before we go into closed section. Could we do that?
How long will it take?
Very quick.
All right. Go ahead. Will you be
Can we
able
do a
to-
break right now, though? Teresa needs a break. I need a break.
I can hold it.
You can hold it?
All right, quickly.
Okay, want to do Hopland first?
Yes.
Okay, let's do Hopland.
Yeah, I'll just say that this is your first look at the PUD SOI update, and there is SOI, as best our records indicate, is the same as the district boundary. There's two parts of Hopland that are connected with the east-west state route, and then a small island area to the south. We're recommending, or this is just a workshop, but no change in the sphere, and we've provided you with information that we've been able to gain from the MSR, and that's my report.
Okay.
Thank you. Angela?
Okay, on page 6 of the current agency operation, this is all according to Dave Redding. He would like it to read, the district has been providing service for approximately 65 years. The district was established in September 1950, not 1955, and currently has 326 active water service connections and 274 active sewer connections. You see that? Okay.
So where did the 1955 date come from?
It was in the MSR, but that, like I said, we've been doing some study on the MSR, and I do have that MSR here available for you guys to read. It is a very, it was done not well. And so there's a lot of misinformation in that MSR. Okay, the next one is background. First paragraph. The fire department became.
6.
Oh, okay. This is still this is all page 6.
Page 6.
Okay. The fire department became a separate entity in 1955. We also want to understand. We want to know why It's something that happened 21 years ago, relevant to a report that is typically updated every 5 years. And that's about the fire department became a separate entity in 1955. Why does it have to be repeated? And then the second paragraph in background, it says, by contract, the WCWD operated the HPUD from 1983 to 1992. In 2008, HPUD requested and received a new service contract from WCWD to provide office space, office personnel, maintenance staff, and general manager to operate the HPUD. HPUD has no employees, and the board of directors work directly with Willow's general manager and board of directors. Okay.
I'm sorry. That wasn't exactly what I have, so that's what you're wanting it
These are what we want it to say.
Okay.
This, instead of this. We want this to say.
Have you sent this off to our EO already?
Yes. Mhm.
So have you received these changes that she's recommending?
Yes, they did.
came in after the packet went out, but yes, we have them.
Do you have any questions of the
No,
information?
no.
I don't think we need to go over each one of them, Angela, if he's
Okay.
willing to.
My understanding was you had this information, but you did not put it in this report. That's the only reason I'm reading it now.
Correct.
But
and
since you have it, but you haven't redone it yet. Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
So
I
you'll
just
be
want to
pre-
make sure that these are going to be done now.
You'll be
are-
presenting this to us at the next meeting then for
Okay.
public hearing?
Okay.
Absolutely right.
Okay. Is that sufficient for you?
That would be better.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. And then now you want to go on to the,
If you plan on leaving after the
I
closed
do.
session, yeah, so let's
Okay.
go ahead and take care of that.
okay.
This is item number
What is it, down at the bottom?
21.
21?
No,
No,
it's the,
this one is for the JPA and concerned with LAFCo, clear at the bottom. Okay.
LAFCO role of JP.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Bill Nicholson, Executive Officer of LAFCO Commissioners. No, two LAFCO.
Cal LAFCO.
Yes. It's, this is proposed Cal LAFCO legislation. It says that top priority carried over from last year's bill is addressed to Joint Powers Authority, whose membership includes a member who is a city, council, or independent special district. The proposed legislation will require these JPAs to provide a copy, which we have, and which they are. And we have by 2017 for existing JPAs. JPAs would not be required, or excuse me, the legislation would not require LAFCOs to prepare a municipal service review for the JPAs. And so if you want to read that, add that. And we also have more information here. It says, under existing state law, there's no direct means for LAFCO to be noticed and informed in the existing activities of JPAs. The proposal is that the JPAs would stand alone, and the LAFCOs would have an interest, but they would not have a power to govern the JPAs, or that they would not be able to put an MSR together for a JPA.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know.
Yeah, Holly.
So that's pending legislation?
Yes.
Okay.
Pending legislation. It's in the works now.
And are they requesting any sort of
Input?
letter of support or input from the commission?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. But it's all until 2017.
What's the bill number on that?
Excuse me?
The bill number, so I can look at it.
Oh, here they are. I've got bill number, there's a lot of them. 56658.
Is it SB or AB?
It looks like it's SB. And then this one is.
So SB 56658.
And these are, there's a lot of them here. You know what?
You
I
can
think
give
I'll
them to me
just give
afterwards
you
then if
copy
there's a
of these.
lot.
Okay.
Which one did you quote from?
I quote from 56658, and this one is, well, it's several. It looks like it's 6503.6 and 6503.8.
Okay, you'll get that information too
Yes.
as well.
I will.
All right.
Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Sure.
That's Commissioner Silver, thank you. That's good information. I think we should all have those bill numbers
Okay.
sent to us. Maybe the clerk can transmit them.
Okay, good idea.
I'll give it to
Thank you.
Beth, and she'll pass it out to everybody.
Seeing no more discussion, we'll go ahead and go to closed session at 11:09 for annual performance evaluation for the contract executive officer. Alternates will have to sit here, I think. Well, wherever you want to go.
So,
You can go have a sandwich.
Quick restroom, where's the nearest restroom? Is it back there?
There's one right
Yeah,
out
that
here, out this door to your right. And what room are we in, Carrie?
We're in Board of Supervisors chambers. So we have
Oh,
to
we are
go.
in a chambers room. This is a chambers, isn't it?
No,
Scott, can you hear me?
Can you hear us in the booth?
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, report on closed session. The commission reviewed a rating sheet and completed it. We will be discussing it with our executive officer. Let's go back to item 10. Potter Valley Irrigation District, Severe Influence. This is a workshop. Did we didn't start this one, did we? Okay.
No, we didn't.
We're on 10.
we skipped over
On number
it.
10,
Page
George, what do you have for us?
This is number 10, Potter Valley. It is, to that one here. Yes, this is the one where,
64, it starts on page 64.
water, yeah, they provide water and wastewater services. They have the two main parts of their district are connected by State Route 175. The majority of it is along Highway 101. And again, we have been in touch with, we have been working with staff, Dave Redding, and to help us inform this, and looking at the MSR SOI. The proposed SOI is the same as the district boundary, and so we're here to receive your comments, and then we expect this to be agendized for public hearing at the March meeting.
Carrie?
We are talking about Potter Valley.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking about Potter Valley, and I looked at the Hopland map. My apologies, Potter Valley.
I wasn't paying attention to
Yeah.
that.
Well, I was. They
Yeah, that's
don't
good.
take care of
Good job.
wastewater.
Yeah, they
Good
don't.
job.
Potter
And
Valley.
Dave Redding is not the manager.
No, thank you. I was still stuck on Hopland. So in this case, thank you for that clarification. The district does have a pretty extensive sphere that extends beyond their district boundaries.
I have a question. So this was a big packet, and I reviewed this, but I don't remember if it was explained about the islands that are not covered. Was that explained in the MSR, what those are on the map? If you look at the map on page 71?
Right. Yes, there are a series of.
Why is that? And
these-
I'm sort of looking to Carrie, because you might know.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
There's little islands in the middle of the district scattered around that are not covered by the district?
That is correct. That goes back to the way the vote went, to be in the irrigation district and where the laterals were going to go and et cetera, et cetera. It's very historic.
So was that lined out,
But
and my co-commissioners, was that lined out in the text? Why those?
that's, I didn't see that it was.
So
Is
are
it-
those like physical barriers, or are those jurisdictional issues, or
There
what?
must be parcels that didn't vote to be part of it.
I mean,
So I would love.
are those like rock piles, or are they residences in some city, or what? I mean, what?
Well, much like the Prop 172 statement I made earlier, It got very political. So, you know, if there's an explanation, I would rather that explanation come from the district itself.
Okay.
If we want to put in verbiage.
I would just like a little,
Being said, I had family there at the time. Still do.
right, some sentence like in 1924, you know, whenever the vote was taken, that some parcels chose to opt out, or, you know, I would love some sort of, just a little sentence about that.
Okay, we can provide that.
Yeah, I mean, just even as some sort of interpretation of the map, you know, like what are these islands?
Yeah. I think they're ranches.
Okay.
I think they're ranch parcels.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
And how you pay. And
So we'll have this on our next meeting as a public, under public hearing.
Yes, if I can get a response from the district, we'll have this notice for that.
And if you don't, just let me know.
Okay.
All right, now you can move on to Hopland.
Thank you. Well, actually, Commissioner Silver did have an opportunity to prepare her comments.
Oh, that's
and I
right,
just-
and you got those.
And I got those comments just by way of explanation. We were waiting on those comments. Those were one of the things that delayed the packet last week, but we didn't receive them in time. We will make those changes. We have a written copy as well as what Commissioner Silver spoke, and so those changes will be in the district, in the workshop, in the hearing draft, in the hearing draft in March. And this one does have a sphere the same as its boundary as shown on the figure 1, page 82.
Besides Angela's comments, was there anyone else on the commission had comments?
Yeah,
Dan?
Jerry, the only thing that kind of stuck out to me when I was reading through it is it talks about Hopland as part of Ukiah Valley. And I know it,
Talk in the microphone.
and I know that in a sense it is. I mean, it's, you know, it's part of the Russian River District. But when you say, you know, like on page 9,
Page 9?
water availability has long been an issue in the Ukiah Valley. And somebody reading that, looking for information on Hopland might go, huh? I thought we were talking about Sunel Valley. And I did notice that the words Sunel Valley never show up in the entire document. And I know a lot of people from Hopland think they live in Sunel Valley, not Ukiah Valley. So I just wondered if we could clean that up.
Okay, that's good. Carrie?
And also, there should be, I believe, a disclaimer on page 8, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act.
Yeah.
Because they're not part of the Ukiah Valley Basin.
Exactly.
It goes a little bit into Sunel Valley, but that's way north of their jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay, good. John, do you have any comments?
Well, no, I think Dan's comment is well taken, and yet the second paragraph under water supply, I think, is still accurate. But I think the first paragraph really should clarify the issues related to Sunel Valley.
Right.
And I think what
We're
this
on
shows
page-
is a weakness.
page
Yeah,
9.
page 9. I think what this may show is the weakness of cut and paste.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good point. Holly?
My question was on the, is it common for the wastewater treatment facility not to be included in the, it's not currently in the district or sphere, it's right, you can see on the map, it's like right outside.
You're talking about the same page?
It's on, no, I'm sorry, it's on page 82 of our packet.
It's the map.
It's the map.
Oh, it's the map.
Yes.
Is that common? I think Round Valley might have a similar.
It is not unusual, I wouldn't know about comment, but it is not unusual for the actual infrastructure to be located outside. Willits is a good example, your watershed is, so the district boundaries are intended to capture where services are delivered.
So, and they have to have leach fields, so So you kind of want it away from
Sure.
housing, and it's a same kind of circumstance with Ukiah Valley Sanitation District and the plant. Spark.
Okay, I think you've got direction on changes.
do. Yes.
One more.
I would like to, because I didn't see it, but when we have the tribal land issue, something back on that from our legal counsel. I do believe that Hopland Public Utility does have that relationship with the Hopland tribe, and I'm just not sure how you include that. And I believe the Hopland tribe was out of district.
Okay.
John, sorry.
Well, my recollection of that issue is that the Hopland tribe has a water right, but that water is delivered to them via the district, but it's not district water per se.
But should we not have, I agree,
Oh,
but
I
we
think
should
it ought
have
to be.
comment, yeah.
And again, that might be more an MSR deficiency.
Got you. But it's still delivery out of,
Yeah, because under the sphere of
There's sphere.
influence, it says that there is no information to indicate otherwise, but if there's an alternative relationship, it would be good to mention it there.
Because again, my recollection is, and Supervisor Hamburg may recall, but I don't think the district is providing district water to the tribe. The tribe is receiving water pursuant to a recognized water right.
that's wheeled through Hopland District
Correct.
and maybe treated as well.
That is true. It is
Well, and it,
by the district.
and it
Because
may
the
even-
district used to deliver it in water trucks.
And now they have a pipeline, which
Now they
is
have a pipeline.
much better.
Good, okay.
And I believe that all that action that took place was State Water Resources Control Board, Division of Water Rights, and the Drinking Water Division.
You got that, George?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so seeing no one from the public, I won't offer any public comment. So we got direction
Yes.
on that, and it'll be a public hearing item in March. Let's move on to agenda item number 12, Countywide Fire Protection Services MSRs. George, do you have any comment?
Just that former EO has provided you materials directly. We have taken everything that we had received as part of that at the time the packet went out, and that is reflected in your packet.
Is there any comments? John?
Well, I would suggest in the interest of time, because I think we did just receive the last one by email today.
1123.
We do have the opportunity to provide comments directly, which could be incorporated into the working drafts. And, so if there's maybe some big issue someone would like to raise right now, otherwise we could simply invite the commission to respond directly to Mr. Baracco and have the items come back for approval.
Because, yeah, there's a typo on Whale Gulch.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little.
Tell Bruce.
Doug?
Yeah, so one thing, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to Holly for getting in an argument with her about her authority to be the vice chair. It was totally inappropriate to contest that authority and was just a little out of sorts.
I missed that, huh?
with the situation. That
You
was
were out
when
of
you
the
had left the room. But I guess this
Sorry.
is the appropriate time to make the comment that I was insistent on making at that time, and that's that we not include the suggested language that Mr. Orth brought forward.
Oh, that was just going to be
And, so-
my,
Carol?
Excuse me for asking, but what exactly is our relationship with Mr. Baracco at this time? Because, in a sense, I'm receiving stuff either directly and I'm never really quite sure where we stand. Do we respond to him? Do we respond to George? Do
No,
we
you respond
respond
to Bruce, to Mr. Baracco.
Okay.
Or not.
Or not.
Just to clarify, we're still under contract for these remaining MSRs.
Okay.
And there's been timelines that have been set forth, and those seem to be sort of being accomplished. But if I would recommend, if we are going to be responding, like has been suggested, on the fire districts to Bruce directly, I would recommend CCing our clerk, just so that she has a copy for us, so that it's not just going out into the ether. So send your corrections to Baracco, and then copy the clerk on it, is what I would recommend.
Thank you, because it's been rather confusing.
Yes.
Since, I'm aware that there is some legal action happening on the board level that I'm not aware of, because as an alternate member, I was not at that meeting. So in a sense, that's the same issue that we have as alternates,
Right.
not really knowing what's going on. And I find that rather questionable as for us to do the best possible work we
We're
can
just
do.
running through the mud on this one, so we're doing the
So-
best we can.
Yeah, it'd be really good if you could
And-
run through the mud a bit faster.
But if you get the material online, just make your comments back to Bruce.
Okay,
And as Holly suggested, make copies to Beth.
thank you.
Because then our EO can have access to that also. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to, is there no other comments on the MSR fire districts?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead. You have to go to the restroom?
there were 2 points that Mr. Orth made, and the other was on ISO.
ISO. You got that, George? I'm going to check
Yes.
that. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Chair, can you just
Yes.
clarify for the record what the action is from this item, if any, or what the follow-up is?
Well, the action would be to respond to any comments back to the previous executive officer, Baracco, and hope that we'll bring it back to a public hearing next month, George,
For potential approval.
for potential approval, yeah.
And
With
just to,
expectation to bring it to public hearing March, regular meeting.
Yes,
and just to
for potential
clarify,
approval.
as far as substantive conversations at this point, Doug's recommendation to not include
Yeah, I've got
Mr.
that.
Earth. Okay,
Thank you.
Well, it's actually the previous direction of the commission,
Right.
I believe.
good point.
Okay, hopefully we will get people to respond, and we won't have people in a public hearing rewriting it again. So we'll go
Thank
on to
you.
number 14, Planwest Contract Amendment for fiscal year 2015-16.
Thank you. This, to that page. Yes, we're requesting. Yeah, we're requesting, starting on page 137, there would be, you have the contract exhibit, it's labeled amendment number 1 on page 138. The minor housekeeping, chair name would be revised, and then exhibit B would be revised for work plan completion, and that is included. And then C, payment terms. These were reviewed by the executive committee at their January meeting, and so that is what you have before you, and that would require a signature of the chair should you act favorably. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unless anyone has any questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
Let's go through questions, yes.
So
Teresa?
I read briefly the first contract this morning when I got it at 7:23 a.m. And I do see that I think there should be some changes in the original contract, not just an amendment added on. Would you like examples? There's like 4 or 5.
Is it,
Well, so for instance, on the original contract, it says during the first year, she'll meet with the executive committee, meet with, and but it says only during the first year. That's, I think maybe that should
Well,
be
he's
changed.
been meeting with us even in the second year.
It's not in the, I
know
know,
it's not in the
but
contract.
there's also a typo. It says during the first year, the contractor shall meet with executive committee. Second paragraph down, it says meet with executive committee is appropriate. So there's some typos in it as well. It says on the fourth paragraph, the staff of Commission's office at the Ukiah Valley Conference Center will staff the office. And we're talking about that's an issue, whether he is directly staffing the office in Ukiah or we are staffing the office in Ukiah. Also, under the sixth bullet, it says present reports and agendas. I'd like it put in the contract that we receive the agendas 1 week in advance. I think that's a commitment that he would agree to, and it should be in the contract that we receive our agendas and we have 1 week with our agendas before we come to a meeting. Also, on page 13, talks about updating the website, and it just says with staff reports and other relevant documents. I think we need to add to that a little bit and say staff reports, MSRs, SOIs, PPGs, and other relevant documents. I went to look for our current PPGs on here, and they weren't on here, although they were approved a month ago. You know, so I think we just should be a little bit more specific on what the duties of putting things on the website, because relevant documents is a subjective term.
So
these are, I'd like the original contract looked at.
would you prefer that you give me those changes and then I sit down with the EO and amend the contract and bring it back? John?
Well, you know, I'm comfortable moving forward today. Items 1, 2, and 3 are minor corrections that I think we could easily make. Number 4, could you repeat your point again?
1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth point was the sixth bullet. Let me see. It was under preparing agendas. That
was your 5th comment.
Oh, so 4, staffing the office in Ukiah. It says that.
What's the exact language that you were concerned about?
The exact language is that he will, during the first year, the contractor shall staff the commission's office at the Ukiah Valley Conference Center.
So we need to add the second year?
Yeah.
Well,
so during the first year. And also, will he personally be staffing the office, or will we have a separate contract with a clerk staffing the office?
Well, right now we have a contract with him, and he is staffing the office in part through his subcontract with the clerk. But I think, again, on that point, the reference to first year could certainly be updated. Your point regarding the agendas, you know, that is not, I don't recall that being something we've discussed and given direction as a commission, so I don't know why we would go beyond what the Brown Act requires.
Well,
at this point. I mean, and we're looking at an amendment to get us through the fiscal year 2015-16.
So you're telling me it's okay to receive an agenda item that's 90 pages, 1.5 business days before meeting? I would like it put in the contract that I have a week to review 90 pages.
I'm okay with receiving an agenda packet in compliance with the Brown Act.
The Brown Act is putting an agenda on the window for the public to see with 3 days' notice.
No, it's not.
Not for your commission.
A lot of, well, the agenda and the material, and frankly, a lot of the material, it's not the first time we've seen it.
Quite frankly, I don't know what's on the agenda until I have the agenda.
Well, we heard from our EO today that he will be getting them out Monday, but I think Holly suggested Tuesday, since our clerk works on Tuesday, would be sufficient. And I think you heard that.
I did, and that's why if he agrees to that, can it be in the contract?
Well, I'll make sure that it gets out on Tuesdays. I'll take it upon my
And if it's
responsibility.
not?
I'll slap his hand. I don't know.
I mean, come on.
I'm willing to take the
How many times does
assurance
this have
of
to
our
happen,
chair.
though?
Let's move on.
Okay.
we will get those more timely. I think he has an incentive to do that because he'd like to continue this employment, so I think that'll work. But I will certainly make it my job to get out. I'm like you, I like to get this stuff out early.
No, I have a family where my husband is only off a few hours on the weekend. I'd like to spend it with him, not reading through these,
Call me if it doesn't get to you timely.
you know.
John?
Unless there are other specific comments.
Let's hear your motion. We can always
I'll let
discuss it.
McCown make the motion. Right now, I'm confused.
You know, I think the
Who's gonna
substantive
comment?
changes here are things that we have discussed and agreed to, and they're consistent with the budget amendment we have made. Therefore, I will move that we approve the Planwest fiscal year 2015-16 contract amendments, and that the chair work with the executive office to address the typographical errors and references to 1 year cited by Commissioner McNerlin prior to finalization.
Is that going to be an amendment to the contract, or do you want the original contract revised?
I think you could just, I don't know, you work it out with the executive officer is what I would say. I mean, they're relatively inconsequential typos.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I would second it, and I think the intent of the motion is that the specifics of how you work this out, you and this EO are supposed to, but
Okay.
to whatever the mechanism is for getting
Okay.
those corrections into the ongoing contract.
I think it was brought up at the executive committee level, George, that on your work plan and completion, you were, like the city of Fort Bragg, it was scheduled for fiscal year 16-17, but we wanted to see what the original MSR completion date
Right.
was.
Yes.
So that update, I would hope would be included in the new amendment.
It will.
Okay. Holly?
I just want to clarify that at a future date, we're going to have a conversation about the role of the clerk's contract, and that won't be,
That'll be through the executive committee first.
right, and that won't be superseded by this action. I just want to clarify
Okay.
that.
So let's do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McNerlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Hammerstrom?
Aye.
Commissioner Madrigal?
Yes?
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 15, Planwest Contract Extension or Staffing RFP Options for fiscal year 16-17.
Yes, as I understand it, you wanted this as a discussion and direction item, and so I await your direction on how to proceed.
Holly, let's start with you.
So, I believe this was brought up because we wanted the commission to know what all of our options were, as far as completing the MSRs. I believe the previous action,
Does not preclude a decision here.
No, it does not.
right, but I think it influences it. I'll put it that way.
Well,
I disagree.
the new EO, if there is a new EO, would follow the same schedule we just approved. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, there has been some discussion at the commission of either extending the current contract an additional year, which does make a lot of sense in terms of continuity, and at the conclusion of that period, if all goes as planned, we would have a complete set of completed MSRs and SOI updates. At the same time, if we issue a request for proposal, we would find if there is anyone else out there that is interested, that thinks they may be able to do the same work, perhaps more expeditiously. I don't, and of course, I would fully expect Planwest to respond to that request for proposal based on their current working relationships with the commission. They would probably have you know, a leg up on anyone else. However, I don't have any concern about seeing what else is out there. And for that reason, I think it could be advantageous for the commission to move forward and issue an RFP.
For the record, I did receive a letter from Ms. Hinman requesting interest in bidding on it through an RFP process. That's the only one I've received so far. Doug?
Well, as one thought about this process, it seems like there's a period of just us getting to know the EO and the EO getting to know us, that, you know, seems like it's almost a 2-year process, and that we've kind of reaching that 2-year point at this point, and it would seem like we may take a step backward just in terms of the working relationships and all of the things that do take time to work out, and that for that reason it would suggest to me that we should continue the contract rather than entertain the possibility of changing and then needing to go through that process of just work out all the details of the working relationship and injecting that.
Holly, then Carol.
Can I just clarify that if we do an RFP process, it would basically be just dusting off our previous RFP, and which is substantially this similar, I would imagine, and putting it out? It wouldn't require a lot of staff time or executive committee time?
I wouldn't think so. No. Carol?
It seems to me that it seems to me that you've gone through a series of people that you're finally, within 1 year, very likely to have a completed MRS and SOI file and some kind of background to go forward, where with at least you have materials that you kind of feel comfortable with. And this is probably the first time ever that I know of that would have happened. So it seems to me that it makes good sense to continue as you are and not have to go backwards and learn new processes with new people. You made it very clear what you expect, and it seems to me giving the current people 1 more year is economically sensible and practical in terms of meeting your goals.
Thank you. I also have an issue with, you know, obviously we're looking for experience and expertise, but it's also a funding issue or a revenue issue or expense issue, I guess. And we've already thrown out there next year what his pricing will be through our budget process. I don't think he's going to come back with, he might come back with something cheaper, but the other participants that would be bidding it would know what we expect to pay. So I do have some concerns about that, and I'm leaning towards what you just said, Carol, that we have a person in place, and I'd like to get this finished. I was hoping to do this the last EO, but it never happened, and here we are doing the same thing. Anyway, Teresa, and then
Yeah.
Kevin?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I think we have a fiscal responsibility to see if this can be done a little, I don't want to say cheaper, but a little more affordably than, $15,000 to update 7 MSRs. I mean, that's, it's our responsibility. It's not going to cost a lot to put the RFP out there and see what comes back. Maybe you don't know who's in the community, and maybe they are well connected and can work well with everyone here, and you just don't know until you throw it out there and see what comes back.
Kevin, where's the wisdom?
Oh, I would just say in terms of operationally, our current EO has spent some time, and his staff has spent some time establishing point of contact, relationships with special districts, getting information from them so he can complete his work. I think to change that up again, maybe a third time through this process, could cause some problems with just the ability to get the information that we've been trying to get. And I think getting that information comes with having a relationship with those districts that we might be having trouble getting the information we need.
Thank you. Carol, Carol, you already spoke on. Carrie.
Okay.
I thought she hasn't spoke yet. She did.
Here we go. I'm in favor of extension of a contract. I feel getting to know each other, getting to know the lay of the land, certainly not the part of MSRs and SOIs that an individual should know if they want to become a LAFCo EO. But I want to get on this. I want to try to finish it. I think we have some expertise here now that is familiar with the lay of the land as well as the commission. So I would like to see an extension. The only change in the extension that of the contract that I'd like to see before we extend it is detaching the clerk. So the clerk works under contract directly for the commission, because I have heard that, and maybe we want to increase those hours, that it's very difficult on a Tuesday and a Thursday to find, someone will be there, but is at the time that will work for people to go in. And, but I'd like to move forward and get a contract extension.
I heard the word move. So, are you moving with a motion?
I shall.
So,
Is there a second?
What's the motion?
The motion is to,
Not do an RFP.
correct, it's a contract extension with the exception of the clerk's position being under the contract, but independently with the LAFCo commission.
That's the motion. Do I hear a second?
Can you break that into two motions?
Pardon?
Can you put that into two separate motions, or?
The executive committee's already discussed the fact we were going to try to get a.
Can I take a stab at an alternate motion?
Is there a second to the
If there's not
Is there a second to the motion?
Without a second, it fails. So I would take another stab at it, but I'm going to let Commissioner Hammerstrom have a go at it.
So I would make a motion that we proceed with a contract extension rather than an RFP, and that we refer that first to the executive committee for further discussion and recommendation to the full council, or for full commission.
So you broke it up, basically. Okay, is there a motion? Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. John?
Well, I think the issue of the contract extension is not straightforward, because we're also discussing a separate contract with the clerk, and that potentially is fairly complicated, how that all would be negotiated and arranged. And again, I think issuing an RFP is simply testing the waters to see what other proposals might be out there. If all that has been said in support of a contract extension would will not be invalidated by going out for an RFP. The commission will simply have the opportunity to make a decision with additional information in front of us. So I won't support the motion, because I think that we could give direction to issue an RFP, and simultaneously the executive committee could be exploring what a separate contract for the clerk would look like, or that could be incorporated into the RFP and let the current contractor and anyone else who wishes to respond.
Well, to start off, we do have a copy of a subcontract for our commission clerk, and that would be the starting point that I would use. It pretty much goes through what she's doing now.
So just to clarify, if this motion doesn't pass, you'll most likely be making a new one?
Correct? Someone will.
Any more discussion?
RFP.
Any more discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I was voting, I would vote in support of continuing the contract. And I really agree strongly with what Kevin had to say about, especially in a county like this, as far-flung as we are, it takes a long time to develop relationships which help you get a call back, help you get the documents you're out there getting. And I would like to just speak for a little bit more continuity and even a little bit of a vote of confidence for George. I think it's been a tough year, or a tough couple of years, because we've been dealing with the residue of our former EO. And I want to see how George and Planwest perform once that has been put to rest. I think he might be even more effective. So, you know, if I were voting, I would be voting for the motion by Commissioner Hammerstrom.
Thank you. John?
Well, I disagree with the comment made earlier that it would be a step backwards to issue an RFP. For one thing, the chair mentioned a letter of interest from Uma Hinman, who does have previous experience working on the MSRs for this commission under the previous executive officer. And frankly, the MSRs that she drafted were distinguished by the level of quality that they encompassed. I mean, you could read on the same subject matter, you could read hers and someone else's, and it was night and day. I believe our current clerk also has quite a bit of experience making direct contacts with district representatives, so I don't have a concern that we would be going back to the starting gate and lose all continuity. And again, I just think it makes sense to see what else may be out there.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Let's, any more? We're going to vote on this. Doug, one more.
Well, I also really agree with what Kevin said. That was an additional continuity factor that I think is perhaps even more important than the one I brought up. But what I was trying to suggest is that we just have to be realistic about the fact that it does take time to have everybody get used to each other and interact. And that was the continuity issue I was raising, and I think Kevin's is an additional continuity issue.
All right, I'm going to call for the question. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McNerlin?
I fiscally, responsibly vote nay.
Commissioner Hammerstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Madrigal? No. Commissioner McCowan?
No.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Oh, I was supposed to ask you last. I'm sorry. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
So the motion
3-3.
doesn't pass, 3-3, so I'll entertain a new motion.
And this may not pass either, but I will move that the executive office work with staff to issue an RFP that would provide that the clerk would be under separate contract.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Yes, and we forgot to ask about the public. But my comment was just that my vote on this should not be construed as a lack of confidence in the EO or in our current role. We'll likely have this exact same conversation when the results of the RFP come back. You know, I mean, and that is fully within our ability to basically do a vote of confidence and an interest in the direction that we're going at that time.
Okay, Carrie?
I'd like to ask a question about the cost to LAFCo for the RFP process. I remember there was a cost. I'd like to hear it.
Does anybody have an answer to that question?
I think that would
Advertising, maybe? No.
You
I
do
don't-
have legal notice postings you have to make. I believe there's mailing and processes. It will come with a cost to the commission, which is in balance to what you just said.
John?
My
Well,
fiscally,
I believe the cost would be minimal, and and again, I agree with the comments of Commissioner Madrigal, so this doesn't preclude our chances. It doesn't signify that we think the current executive officer is not doing an acceptable job. It simply preserves our options to weigh other proposals, and I, again, think the cost would be minimal, and that is balanced against the potential that we may find the work can be accomplished in a more cost-effective way that would save more than the cost of updating the current RFP.
So let's keep a tally sheet.
Also, you have to add too, John, that there's going to be a lot of time on the commission interviewing prospective new EOs, and that take a lot of time. I remember sitting on that committee, and it was, a couple hours. We had 3 or 4 applicants, and it was difficult and time-consuming too. Now, it's out of my pocket, I understand, but still, it's time involved. Kevin?
Just wanted to add that related to professional services contracts with public agencies, that typically price isn't the determining factor, it's actually the qualifications of the individual. So you could find someone that has better qualifications and may have a higher price. So in terms of professional services contracts, they're not bids, they're proposals. They express their experience and background, and then you have a price associated with their estimate, basically, of doing the work. So if an estimate came in to do the MSRs was $5,000, that doesn't mean that's all it's going to cost you. It could still end up costing you $10,000 or $15,000 because it's based upon what it takes to get the work done. It's not a bid, something you can hold them to particularly.
Can you
So,
go ahead.
and I don't remember how long the previous RFP process took, but it seemed like it was at least 6 months. And so we have not only that we will be consumed with our time on the commission with this, but I don't understand the logistics of how this would work out in terms of our current contract expiring in 5 months.
Can you read the motion again, please?
The motion is for the executive office to work with staff to create an
Executive committee is what
Okay, I
meant.
thought that's what you meant, but not quite what you said. I didn't want to
Good-
change your
good
words.
change.
Thank you. Executive committee to work with staff to create an RFP. I missed something right in there, but that also includes separating a contract out for the clerk as separate. Does that cover it? And I do have the recording of the exact.
Okay, we've heard the motion. We have a second. Let's vote. Do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McNerlin?
aye.
Commissioner Hammerstrom?
No.
Commissioner Madrigal?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Okay. To move this process, yes.
And Commissioner Ward?
No.
So that's a 4-2.
And I'm calling the 5:30 rule. It's 1 o'clock.
Well, I
have
think
it.
it's the MCOG
MCOG
rule.
starts at 1:30.
Oh, it starts at 1:30, okay. I don't feel as bad right now.
But there are commissioners that serve in both bodies that may want to eat something.
Especially after a 4-hour session.
So is there anything here, we probably need to get through the alternate public member appointment because that's also needs to be noticed as well. So let's get into 17, George.
Yes, on advice of legal counsel, the current alternate term should be noticed and opening be posted, published, and we can take care of that this week. Deadline of applications would be the 26th, and then you could interview applicants as you did prior at your March meeting and make a alternative member selection for the next term.
So be it. Let's move on and post it. Is that the recommendation? Did I direct that?
This that I just grabbed is the signatures.
No, I'm talking about the posting of the alternate
By
public
direction
member.
of
Well,
the
it's
chair.
required by law, it
Yes.
appears, so it's appropriate.
Yeah,
Okay,
done.
done. So the next item I think would be appropriate would be status of audit reports.
Yes, you have the, there's just a summary on the prior action on 2012-13. You have the draft report in your packet for 13-14, and then the for 14-15, your action would be approve of the contracting for Pelling for that year, and execute the letter of engagement.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I just want to make a comment that when I received the audit report for 13-14, there was different numbers that was originally presented to the auditor, basically my work. So I called the auditor up and asked him why there wasn't any adjusting journal entries to support it. And he went on to say that he had to start from scratch to build the financials. So I said, well, did you not receive the financial statements with all the work papers that I presented? And he said, no. So I sent him all the information, and within 2 days, the audit was complete with the same numbers I presented,
Oh, gosh.
including the notes. So
Why
it was
don't we
very
just contract with you?
it was very unfortunate that we wasted a lot of time him digging up information from the county auditor and our minutes and whatnot when he didn't have the appropriate ones. Now, I'm hoping that our financial statements for 14-15 are going to be presented to him for the audit, which we've already approved. So I would like to review those before they do, George, so that we don't send Mr. Pelling, on a goose chase again. And I need to get a copy of the engagement letter to sign.
Okay.
And there's also a management letter I think the chair has to sign that I wrote on that I need a new copy, if you could.
Okay, we can get those.
So the audit is exactly what we presented, and I'm proud to say that it's consistent from our previous audits for the last 10 years, including all the notes and whatnot. So
Jerry, do you
We'll
have an
move on.
idea of what the expense that was incurred because of
no,
the?
he didn't. But it didn't sound like he spent much time, because I gave him to him one day and I had the final product and 2 days later.
No, how about the original expense for him?
That's already been
Because
in a contract and has been paid. I don't think he's going to send us an additional billing on it. Now, he may want to, if he does any future audits, he may want to pocket some of that additional expense, but we've already made a commitment for these last 2 years of $3,000.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, motion passes.
So, Jerry, in the interest of
Is there anything else that needs to
doing
be?
the MCOG rule, could we just get the update on the special election? Would be the one remaining item that I think would be prudent to report on today.
Is there any other ones that people would like to comment on or receive a report on? All right, George, how about the status of the special election?
Yes, for the unexpired special district term, the ballots are due, I believe, the 25th, and they'll be counted the following day, and those that will be reported to you at your March meeting.
And Carol volunteered to be with you.
Okay.
On the 26th.
Yes.
So that would be February 26th.
Yes.
Anything else you want to discuss that's important? The letter to Bill Moore, requesting $610 additional dollars, I believe.
Yes.
That wasn't on the schedule that you presented to us in the monthly financial report, that he owed that. So that might need updating.
Okay, I will check that, but that was my record.
And I have a suggestion on our packets. I receive these MSRs, SOIs during the month from you, and I print them out so I can read them
Yeah.
when I'm bored. And then when I get the packet from you, hopefully a week in advance, you have them all in there again. And so I copy them all over again. So I'd suggest if you could take those MSR SOIs and make it an attachment to the thing you're sending out for me, then I can go in and just print out the agenda and the backup, and if I want the attachments, I can print them out again. I would save 102 pages of paper if you were to do it that way.
Okay.
So just make them an attachment.
So the reports as attachments rather than embedded in the
Yeah,
agenda packet.
I got a 167-page agenda packet,
You had already printed.
and I already printed everything else out.
If you go onto the website, you can click on each one individually.
Well,
So I
he's
just
already
print
sent
out
it
the-
to me, though, because I'm one of those
Yeah.
electronic guys.
Yeah. I know.
And there, and
It's a suggestion. That's what I did. I just, picked and
But the-
choose what I needed to print out from the website when it was posted.
Anything else?
I'm sure there is more, but I think we better vacate the space.
I beat the meeting by 1 minute. Last meeting was 1:11. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for all your input today. Sorry it's a long meeting, but it may end up being like this for a while. I'll be in touch with you and
No, I wasn't
Doug.
going to claim that $50, but after 2 meetings like this, I
Well,
think
you know,
I just
Mussolini
might.
tried to make the trains run on time.